Tired of long waits and rushed care at the ER and urgent care clinic? Next time, stay home and let Dispatch Health bring the power of the hospital to you.
I call Dispatch Health. A care team of medical professionals actually come to your house.
They're the same caliber of people that you would see if you were at a hospital or an urgent care.
Dispatch Health can treat most non-life-threatening emergencies.
They can do the x-rays, they can do stitches,
urinary tract infections, blood test, urinalysis, ultrasound.
It's almost everything that they can do at the ER.
You never feel rushed. They're there for you and only you.
I felt like their only patient.
And it costs no more than a trip to urgent care because Dispatch Health is covered by most insurance, including Medicare. See if we serve your home at dispatchhealth.com.
Dispatch Health really went above and beyond.
It's wonderful to have care come to your home.
House calls are back, and they're better than ever. Learn more at dispatchhealth.com.
The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
G'day world, this is the Sniper of the Skies, Robbie Eagles, and you are listening to Keeping It Strong Style.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keeping It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keeping It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith. On today's show, we'll review the quarterfinals of the NJPW World TV Title Tournament, both Rumbl on 44th Street shows, preview Battle Autumn in Osaka, and cover all the latest news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. You can support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network or Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You can also get all the podcasts over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Pro Wrestling Tees store, prowrestlingtees.com/socialsuplex. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style t-shirt. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and clicking on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. This week's episode is brought to you by the NJPW EXT, the only browser extension for NJPWWorld.com, with features like dark mode, improved translations and layouts, custom and shared playlists, synchronized viewing parties, and much, much more. It takes NJPW World to the next level. You can visit njpwext.us today for details. Young boy, we had a Halloween yesterday. How was your Halloween?
I'm sorry to tell you, Halloween was not yesterday.
Yes, it was.
No, it was not. For the little kids, it was. Not for grown folks. Okay. Halloween was Saturday the 27th at Mixers.
Only at Mixers.
Only at Mixers, and you missed it.
What down at the Mixers?
You know, I don't know if I can go into all the details of everything that transpired on that fateful evening, but no, actually we had a lot of fun. We had a huge group of friends. We went out. Rich and James of One Nation Radio also attended, and they also brought people along with them. So we had a whole mess load of people, and me and Rich, we decided, fuck it, we're gonna go ham, we're gonna go hard, and hard we did go. Yeah, we dressed up. He was one of the Cobra Kai guys.
Yeah, that's right.
So
no mercy.
Yeah, and yeah, there's no mercy in this dojo. Sweep the leg, all that good stuff. And then I just went as a random skeleton guy. I did a Darby Allin, painted up my face in a skeleton, put on some dark stuff, and people liked the outfit. Actually, I went out and yeah, we sang karaoke, and we were in a smoky bar. So we smelled horrible. It was awesome. Really, really, really cheap well drinks for like $4 for like the strongest drink you've ever had in your life. And yeah, man, we had a great time. And I sang Psycho Killer by by the Talking Heads, and Rich sang Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley. Is that guy's name?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and then after he got done, he told the entire bar that they got Rick rolled just now. Unfortunately, I had to leave a little bit early. James got there late, so I didn't even spend that much time with James. But apparently, he sang karaoke too. I didn't even know. So, hopefully, for those listening, I know that this is a little insidery. We got a large audience, but like, let me just tell you guys, Mixers is the bar that I attend pretty regularly. It's super dive, but it's fun. They got darts, they got well drinks, super eclectic mix of people, and then it's just like, and they got karaoke every weekend, and the tiniest little dance floor you've ever seen, and we go hard there. And I'm always inviting people from our friend group, and no one is ever willing to attend this place.
It's become a meme pretty much in our group chat. It's like every Friday night, Saturday morning, like, all right, who's coming to Mixers? And
but here's the thing. I don't actually go that often. Like the last time we went, which was like 3 or 4 weeks ago, the guy was like, I haven't seen you guys in a few months. So it's not like we're there all the time. But when we do go, because I don't go out that much, but when we do go out, inevitably, we somehow find our way at Mixers, regardless of whether we started there or whether we end the night there. And no one is ever willing from our group to go. But I believe I may have won over at least Rich and possibly James. Maybe not. I don't know about James. I don't know.
Well, that's a start. Yeah, I mean, I have not stepped in the Mixers yet. So yeah, maybe I need to come give it a try. But yeah, it's pretty big getting James out. I mean, post-pandemic, you don't get James out unless it's for like a wedding or a funeral, or maybe a pay-per-view. So,
well, pandemic's over, bro.
So that's big.
No, I don't even know if it's over. It's over here in Florida. It's been over for like 1.5 years, 2 years now. So,
right. What pandemic?
Did you do anything cool for Halloween?
So kind of laid low for the most part this year. My wife had one of her family cousins had a little get together thing. So a lot of spooky themed treats and stuff like that.
You dress up?
No, we didn't dress up.
And then it's not Halloween. Then it's just a farce. It's like it's like what do the churches do? They do a fall festival.
Yeah, the
trunk or treat.
Trunk or treat. Yeah,
that's what you did, bro. You did adult trunk or treat.
I left the gimmicks at home. Didn't mask up. No paint this year. None of that.
Yeah, me with the paint. All right, so we got like 6 shows and a bunch of other stuff to cover.
Yeah, so we got a lot to dive in here. First thing we got
nothing from Halloween was scary. What's been scaring me all weekend is doing this show and watching all of this content.
Yeah, it was a lot. Before we jump into the shows, October is over. We're recording on Tuesday, November 1st, which means we got to name the October Wrestler of the Month and Match of the Month. Young boy, tell the listeners who our Wrestler of the Month is for October.
Yeah, and let me just say, there's been several months in the past where it's been pretty cut and dry, open and shut case for who the Wrestler of the Month is. And on this particular month, it was pretty difficult. I mean, realistically, I think Aussie Open, Narita, Shingo, and Zack Sabre Jr. all had pretty strong, compelling cases for being the Wrestler of the Month just based off their body of work or major wins, that sort of thing. But Ultimately, and people may disagree with this, and I don't know if maybe he just gets the love bump because we both adore the man. I'm not sure. But after a lot of back and forth and a lot of soul searching, it should come as no surprise to many of you that October's Wrestler of the Month is Tomohiro Ishii.
I know, and that might be a surprise to you if you haven't been paying attention, but this man, Ishii, had a awesome month. You start in the UK, Royal Quest 2 has a tag match with Okada against Bad Dude Tito and Zack Knight, which was fine, but then the next night, he has a banger with Yota Tsuji. Then you look at what he's been doing on New Japan Strong this past weekend. He had a banger with Filthy Tom Lawler to close off the Autumn Attack Tour. And then in Japan, the TV title tournament, we'll talk about it here in a second, but absolutely great main event with Ren Narita.
Yeah, I was going to say, like you mentioned, if you're not paying attention, it might come as a surprise because his match has kind of been scattered all over. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, Strong, and then, you know, the UK show, and then now this one was in the TV tournament. But he's also had 10 Battle Autumn, you know, tour tag team matches along the way during this month as well. So super high output of volume as well as quality. Probably the best string of singles matches all month. But the reason I was saying it's not a surprise to the listeners because it's Ishii, and he wins this like half the year since the show started. I'm pretty sure Ishii is the most winningest like person in the history of Wrestler of the Month for this show.
Yeah.
So
like the only reason people could be surprised, like if they didn't see the Royal Quest Tsuji match, didn't see the Filthy Tom match, like there could be some stuff that people are missing.
Well, the other thing too is like he did lose to Narita, who, like I said, has a pretty strong case himself, but when you take into fact or taking it, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but when you take into account the fact that he gave Narita and Tsuji probably their best singles matches thus far in New Japan, and arguably one of Filthy Tom Lawler's best singles matches in the company, it's a strong argument for Tomohiro Ishii. So, you know, beat out Narita, beat out Aussie Open, beat out Shingo and ZSJ this month.
Yeah.
So that is our Wrestler of the Month. And Jeremy, let the people know what the match of the month for October is.
Yes, so the October match of the month comes from Royal Quest Night 1. That's right, it's the IWGP Tag Team title match between FTR and Aussie Open. This match received rave reviews before it even ever made tape and was distributed. And then once it was finally released on New Japan World, 2 weeks later, people are watching it, throwing 5 stars, match of the year. It's in, I believe, the top 5 matches of the year on cagematch.net. This absolutely incredible tag team match. Me, personally, I was not as high on this match as some other people, I guess majority of people are, but I can recognize just, what it's moved the culture across
Jeremy,
the board.
You gave it 4.5.
Yeah.
4.5 in years past has been match of the year.
I know, but we're used to the, 4 3/4, the 5s, the
right.
6s.
And there weren't 5s and 4 3/4 in the month of October. So it's not like what you're saying is that crazy or controversial. Like, I don't,
I know it's based on the ratings. But most people are like, for sure, 5 stars.
Right.
It's my match of the year. Nothing's better. And for me, I just wasn't quite as high on it.
I just feel the energy that you want to distance yourself from the FTR crowd is what it sounds like. Like, without saying it, you're using code to throw up the signal like, hey, I'm not rocking with this shit.
All I'm saying, it was a great match. It's the October match of the month. I don't think it's match of the year. I don't even think it's the best tag team match of the year.
I do think right now, and we'll have to see when we go over the ballots, probably going to be
the New Japan
tag team match of the year.
Yeah, I can agree to that. Yeah. So,
So strong month for October. Hopefully we can keep things rocking in November. I don't know. I feel weird tonight.
Why?
I don't know. Like, I'm like getting tongue tied. It's like, how many episodes of this fucking show we done now? Like 500 almost?
This week is episode 257.
Okay, so we're like almost half to what I, or over half of what I estimated. But yeah, you'd think after like 275 episodes and countless thousands and thousands of hours of recorded audio, I would feel like, normal. But I don't know, I feel weird.
Hey, it is what it is. Even the pros, I mean, Uncle Dave gets, tongue-tied sometimes. So
I'll tell you what, there was a DJ Saturday night, and one of the girls that were with us was like, he sounds so professional. And like, I was just thinking, my dog Jeremy was smoking. Jeremy's got that broadcaster voice. Bro, I could probably get you a gig at Mixers on Saturday nights. You would mop this kid. Better music choices, better voice. I'm pretty sure you keep things like live and lit. Like, you need to be a DJ, bro.
I need that for some extra income.
Yeah.
All right.
But let's jump into these shows, I guess.
Yeah, so we got we'll start in Japan with the Battle Autumn Tour. So we'll go over the 3 shows, and what we'll do is we'll kind of read the results from the undercard, and because we're previewing the big tour closer, Osaka, we'll talk about some of the stuff that happened in the undercard in the build of those matches, and then for right now, we'll focus our attention on the NJPW World TV Title Tournament matches.
The shit that actually matters.
Yes. So we'll start October 26th. We had Aaron Henare and Gideon Gray defeating Fujita and Nakashima. Alex Zane, David Finley, and Tiger Mask defeating Taka Kanemaru and Zack Sabre Jr. Hikuleo and Tanahashi defeating Dick Togo and Evil. Kenta and Taiji Ishimori defeating Desperado and Taichi. Hiromu and Sanada defeated Master Wato and Togi Makabe. And then Francisco Akira, Jeff Cobb, and TJP defeated Bushi, Tetsuya Naito, and Teton, which then leads into this night's TV tournament matches. First, in the semi-main event spot, we had Toru Yano defeating the Great Okan at 11 minutes and 20 seconds.
Yeah, this match was interesting because we've seen Yano and Okan wrestle before. Well, last week, did I say I couldn't remember those matches?
Yeah.
Okay. Once I started seeing the preview tags for it, I was like, what was I thinking? Like, obviously he like tied his like
hair
ponytail in the past. So it all kind of came back to me once I saw them in the ring together. But it's a really interesting pairing just because obviously Yano is a comedy wrestler and he relies so much on gimmickry and everything like that and to kind of like get through his matches. But even though Okan is a great technical wrestler, he kind of rides with the bullshit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's a low-key comedy wrestler.
Yeah, low-key comedy guy. So they kind of actually have a lot to work off of one another. And I thought this match was pretty good. I mean, not great by any means, but for being like what? I don't even know, like a 11-minute TV title match. I thought it was fine. I thought it was funny and somewhat enjoyable. And I think part of it is because seeing Yano's shtick on people he's wrestled for a long time, it kind of grows tiresome. But when it's someone who's like so expressive and so character oriented, like Okan, I think it's a little bit more entertaining. But obviously, the real like big talking point of this match was the tail end, where we got the surprise appearance of the Great Muta and him spraying the mist in Okan's face.
Yeah, so the lights go out, and first I'm like, oh no, is Yano joining House of Torture?
House of Torture bullshit. It's like, oh god.
Yeah, or is it Sabu? Is it finally Sabu? But yeah, the lights go out, comes back on, and like you mentioned, yeah, it's a Great Muta, which he's kind of a little rivalry kind of brewing with the Great Okan based off of one of his retirement matches. So he comes out, you mentioned, shoots the green mist. Okan, incredible sell job of this thing. He's acting like his eyes are burning, his skin is burning, he's screeching and yelling, which causes a distraction for Toru Yano to roll him up. Schoolboy 1, 2, 3. Toru Yano advances in the TV title tournament. Okan continues to sell the green mist. After the match, Great Muta and Yano shake hands, and then post match, Great Okan's crawling to the backstage, screaming and yelling, "Oh, it burns, it burns." And, saying, this is not over. He wants to battle Muta, and we would find out that we will get a 6-man tag coming up at the historic crossover with Okada, Yano, and Great Muta taking on Jeff Cobb, the Great Okan, and Aaron Hanare.
Yeah, and I think when the surprise was actually that it was Great Muta, they did a great job. Like, the lights come on, the ref's back is turned, he's attending to Yano, and there's just this, like, the crowd just murmuring, like, oh, like, and they did the standoff, like, Okan's in the ring, and then Great Muta is, just standing there at ringside, just looking menacing, and like neither one's moving, and then as soon as Okan like comes through the ropes and like faces him, boom, the mist just fucking hits him right in the face. It's probably one of the best mists I've ever seen.
Yeah, dude.
In the history of wrestling.
Best mist, best sell job, like.
And then, instead of Yano being the one who, threw him into the exposed turnbuckle, hit him low, and then rolled him up, like, it's the interference from Okan. So it kind of protects Okan in a way, and makes it plausible that Yano would be able to beat him at this point. It puts him up in the win column in their all-time rivalry against one another, and it, creates a situation now where it's like, Okan needs to get his comeuppance against Muta before Muta goes away, and again, Muta, obviously that is the gimmick, insane, violent, homicidal character version of Kijimuto, and we kind of see some similar influences there for Great Okan. Not to say he's a totally different guy, but when he wrestles a tag match versus for the big matches, it's almost like a character transformation. It's a gimmick change and a tire change. So there's even some influence there, I would say, and definitely even just the leaning heavily into the character standpoint of, from a work standpoint in his matches, that's heavily Muta influence. So I think this whole thing's pretty fitting, and I thought it was entertaining, and it's kind of nice to not just have, I mean, granted, do I want great matches on my, New Japan shows? Sure, of course. But having moments like this, I know, like, we make fun of the WWE crowd because they love moments, but
right.
Every now and again, because this sort of stuff is so sparingly done in New Japan, it can be very effective when it's used correctly. And I felt like on this show, on this stage, it was done really well, and it's gonna be awesome in the video packages when they actually do wrestle.
Yeah, and also it helped, like you mentioned, some Cork and Hall, people were able to cheer, so you did get that crowd reaction. First of all, just in the match with all the Yano antics, but then with this post-match angle, like you mentioned, you had the crowd kind of murmuring and popping once Muto's there, and he shoots the mist, and the crowd was really into it and digging that whole angle. So yeah, everything was great there, and we do have an angle of the year category, so glad to get a late nominee here for that.
Yeah, and we were also last week speculating, just based on the trajectory of the tournament, like, it seemed like Yano sort of needed the win,
yeah,
for the booking to make sense, but we didn't anticipate a Great Muta appearance, so
right.
That was cool.
Yeah. So then moving on to the main event, the last first round match in the tournament, the Son of Strong Style, Ren Narita defeats the Stone Pitbull Tomohiro Ishii 14 minutes and 33 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, I know obviously it's so early in the return from excursion for Ren Narita, so making a statement like the biggest win of his career, like any big win he gets, is going to be meaningful at this early juncture of his career. But because of the history and the stage and the stakes and the opponent and also the excellency that was displayed in the match, the violence that was on display, this is a huge win and really tells me that New Japan is going in with Ren Narita. And it is so funny because I've listened to, this was, last week after, like literally the day after we'd recorded. So we're kind of late on giving our thoughts and opinions on the matter, but I've heard so many other podcasters and personalities just talk about how they're all in on Ren Narita now. They're buying in on him, blah blah. I'm like, bitch, we've been talking about this man since 2017.
Yes,
we have been riding hard for Ren Narita, and to finally see people find out. And you know what the funny thing is, the stage did matter, but if you watched Strong at all for the past year or year and a half, however long it's been, he's been doing this time and time and time again with Filthy Tom Lawler and Chris Dickinson,
Fred Rosser.
I mean, he's got a plethora of great matches. The Juice match just very recently.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a catalog already kind of built up that people don't know about, and to see him come here and put it on display against one of the best in the game, Tomohiro Ishii, and then all the allusions, all the callbacks, and the history from the Shibata rivalry and series. It was just really, really great. This match was awesome.
Yes, match was, so great. And they kicked it off right from the bell, throwing strikes at each other. You know, they did a great job building this matchup too in the the tour with the undercard tags. And so there was a lot of heat going to this. Like I said, started from the bell, exchanging forearms and chops, and the crowd was super into it. And Narita was hitting a bunch of great suplexes all throughout this match. Some really stiff kicks to Ishii. And it had everything you loved about a great kind of strong style match. A lot of firing up, fighting spirit spots, kicking out at one. You had big clotheslines and lariats. Again, Narita with this awesome like German suplex bridge on Ishii. Ishii firing back with a huge headbutt. And these guys just going back and forth, just kind of throwing bombs at each other, firing up until Narita was finally able to capture Ishii in the Narita special bridging suplex for the win. And like you mentioned, they are going all in with Narita. You can tell what they think about a guy when they come back based off their booking and slotting. You compare it to like a more recent comeback in like a Master Wato, who his first feud was with Doki, and he kind of struggled to beat Doki. And here
he lost to Kanemaru.
Yeah. So here you have a Ren Narita coming back and defeating, one of the best in-ring workers, a top guy in New Japan, multiple time never open weight champion, Tomohiro Ishii. Like you mentioned, it's a big win because Ishii is not quite at New Japan dad status yet. I mean, he still picks up some big wins. Didn't have the best G1 record this year, but obviously the output's still there, still has a lot of big wins. It's still considered, to the audience as a tough opponent. So like you mentioned, a big vote of confidence here for Narita to get the big pinfall, clean victory on Tomohiro Ishii. Awesome match. I went 4.5 on this.
Now I'm slightly lower than you. I feel like this is where I got to pull out that rare 4 1/3 because I feel like 4 1/4 is too low, but for me, I feel like 4.5 is just a tad bit too high. Couple things I did like about the match. I mean, Ishii, we talked about how he can go in there and he has these templated matches that are great, admittedly. He's got a formula that you can plug in and play certain guys in the certain formulaic matches he has, and they work, and it's really good. But then sometimes he just is super motivated, and that's what we got here. And then on the other side of the fence, you've got Ren Narita, who is a young up-and-comer who's looking to make a name and, basically make his bones off of, a grizzled veteran in Tomohiro Ishii and prove himself. It's a tale as old as time, but to see them pull it off this well was really great. Only couple things for me was I do feel like, and it's kind of strange, and I don't want to sound too much like a contrarian, but the hype that I saw going into this was like that strong style, hard hitting action in New Japan has been gone and dead, at that next level. And this match brought it back. And this was a throwback to Shibata Ishii. This was a throwback to Nakamura Ibushi. And I got to tell you, Jeremy, I didn't see that. I thought that this was an excellent, excellent match. I do feel like it was worked really well, given the fact that it had to be under 15 minutes. And I feel like they went out there and put their working boots on. And it was stiff and it was really great. But this to me was not in the level of like, say, some of the Ishii Goto G1 matches that we've seen, or like even recently in the pandemic era, like Nagata and Suzuki, or those like Shingo and Ishii matches. That stuff is next level violence, and this wasn't quite that. This isn't to say that I want to take anything away from the match. I feel like it was perfect for what it was, because down the line, these guys are going to meet again, probably on a bigger stage when I feel like Narita has even more experience and they probably can go out there and do more. But I did think it was crazy how I heard people talking about. Now, the good thing is there's probably a lot of people who aren't paying as much attention to New Japan as maybe we are. And so maybe that's why the nuance is like lost on me, because I'm like, this isn't new. We're seeing this month after month after month after month. This company never stopped being the great match company that it's always been. But people are acting like this was like a throwback to happier times. And I'm like, the good times never stop, people. You guys just stop watching. It's been here all along. And this is just this is a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, I mean, I gave the match 4.5, but I wouldn't say, it was up there like you mentioned, like a Shingo Ishii. Some of these matches we're getting with, Ishii the last 2 years in the pandemic, Nagata, Suzuki, like we've still been seeing strong style matches, several match of the year contenders, several violent, bloody, hard-hitting matches. But this match was a really great matchup, like you mentioned, for the 15 minutes main event. Kind of the story between these guys here. It was a great story, and yeah, I really enjoyed this matchup and looking forward to this continued rise of Ren Narita. And I'm just so excited that the company, we've been talking about it for a while now, how they need an injection of youth. We need younger talent. The roster's growing old, and to see that they're finally going with a young guy in Ren Narita and strapping the rocket to him is pretty exciting to see.
I don't know if he's going to win this tournament. I have a feeling he might not win the tournament, but I feel like maybe now's the time for them to go full bore and just do it. But I am excited to see the future of him. And I got to say, even though I have a couple of negative remarks, taking nothing away from this match, I still think it's probably the best match of the tournament so far, maybe the best match of Narita's career, and probably the second best match of the month at worst, just behind FTR and Aussie Open.
And the great thing, too, is all these TV tournament matches are free on NJPW World. They're on YouTube. So I think this was a great, magnet to bring fans back in. It generated a lot of buzz. So, great idea there, the TV matches being free. So that's bringing a lot of attention to New Japan. Also, real quick, I love their the pre-match promos for these guys. Like Narita said like one word and Ishii said nothing.
Ishii didn't say anything. He looked annoyed that he had to even be on camera, like even, giving them the time of day to try and ask him a question or whatever,
Right. I wish he would have just pulled a Dallas and just said, smash! And just walked off. We did have a question here from Barry Wall. She says, seeing how well Kojima is doing in Noah, which I called 6 before it happened to this very show, should Ishii go to Noah or All Japan? I love him and don't want him to go ever, but his own legacy, is he not deserving of a possible world title to his name, considering how much you like him? Would you rather he get a title before he retires or stay in New Japan, never win the big one, but still put out amazing work?
Tomohiro Ishii, ROH World Champion. That's got a nice ring to it. The NWA World Heavyweight Champion, Tomohiro Ishii, up there with Buddy Rogers, Lou Thez, Pat O'Connor, Tomohiro Ishii. That sounds right.
I wouldn't mind Ishii, just coming to America, winning the Strong title and just being the Strong champion for like a year.
Yeah, that is one of the things. And, Barry, I don't recall you sending us a comment saying that, but we get so many questions. I don't remember what I said last week half the time. So, but yeah, I mean, that definitely makes sense that someone would have thought that Kojima or some of the dads could do well on the outside in some of the other companies. And there's no reason to think that Tomohiro Ishii would be an exception. If anything, I mean, we've seen him already have matches and have good reactions in Impact and in ROH in the past and in AEW and different places. So yeah, I I would love to see him on the indies, but I wouldn't mind seeing him have storylines and go on a run in a, BJW or All Japan or Noah or whatever, or Glade. All that shit sounds cool to me.
Yeah. So moving on to the next show, October 27th, we had Aaron Hanare defeating Rihoi Oiwa, Tomohiro Ishii and Toru Yano defeating Ren Narita and Yuto Nakashima, Great Okan and Jeff Cobb defeating Togi Makabe and Tomioka Hanma, Bushi, Hiromu, and Teton defeating Akira, Gideon Gray, and TJP, Alex Zane, Hikuleo, Tanahashi, and Master Wato defeating Despi, Taichi, Taka, and Kanemaru, Sonata and Tetsuya Naito defeating Gato and Kenta. So that brings us to the tournament matches. In the semi-main event, we had Evil defeating Yoshihashi 9 minutes and 48 seconds.
The good thing, this was kept short, which was, I guess all of the matches are short, but it was sub 10 minutes, so that's a positive. But considering the quality of matches we've seen from Yoshihashi and Evil in the past, I felt like this was a bit of a letdown. Typical, Bullet Club, House of Torture, shenanigans, and cheating, but it was almost like turned up. The thing I was thinking was, with the shorter match times, maybe they wouldn't be able to pop off as much gimmickry. And it turned out that they could do just as much gimmickry in an even shorter amount of time. So it kind of really brought the match down quite a bit for me. It was fine, but I guess it was to kind of be expected that Evil would get through. But I didn't find the match entertaining or compelling in any way, really.
Yeah, this sucked. There's just there was just so much shenanigans, literally everything with Dick Togo and ref distraction, ref bumps, pulling the ref out the ring. And Yoshihashi had the match won on like 10 different occasions. He was overcoming all the odds and literally had Evil pin with that same kind of karma roll-up he used on Jeff Cobb. But Dick Togo pulled the ref out of the ring. Until finally at the end, Evil was able to hit Everything is Evil on Yoshihashi to get the win here. And I get it. You want to continue the gimmick and get heat, but you know what? We're in Corkin Hall. The crowd can make noises, and I gotta be honest with you. I really didn't hear as many big boos as much as like the very first like fan cheering show.
Well, okay, I will counter that by saying this. Anytime they did anything bad, it did get booed. They didn't get the kind of nuclear heat when they walked in the audience and the audience goes, oh, but every single time they cheated, the crowd reacted to it viscerally. And there is online a narrative that I've seen on Twitter where people are acting like it's dead silent during these Evil matches. That's not really the case. It's just kind of, I think, his shtick is overdone, and I feel like the people are just reacting to it sort of out of a knee-jerk reaction.
Like a Pavlovian kind of, somebody's cheating, so we're going to boo.
Exactly. But people are acting like they want it to go away, so they've decided to protest by going silent. That's not even kind of true.
No, I'm not saying that. I just feel like...
I'm not saying you are. I'm saying that's what I'm seeing online.
Yeah, I'm just saying compared to the first Corkin show where cheering was allowed again, and they got House of Torture got super heat on that show.
Yeah.
But then compare that show to this show, I don't feel like it was quite the same level of heat.
Well, I think the problem is the stuff that they do not only it's just so overdone. Like there's nothing about his game that is changing match over match in any way. And you look at some of the other guys like ELP or Jay White, who are also, big time cheaters in the same faction as him, and they're able to get illicit negative responses from the crowd without doing the exact same thing every single match. It is becoming lazy and just overdone. Now, I will say, I thought Yoshihashi was good in the match. I thought that his, he kept trying to overcome and counter everything, and his selling was really good, but that's the only thing in the match that I found to be compelling at all, really.
Yeah, I thought Yoshihashi looked great, had tons of fire here. Crowd was behind him. Yeah, but unfortunately, he was in there with Evil. Moving on to the main event, we had Zack Sabre Jr. defeating David Finlay in the other quarterfinal matchup here. So last week, I was throwing a bold prediction out. I was going for David Finlay getting the win here and advancing on to the finals, but unfortunately, I was wrong, and Sabre picks up the win. He was one step ahead of David Finlay and caught him with a roll-up towards the end.
Yeah, bro. I called from the very beginning ZSJ versus Narita in the finals. I don't know if that's actually going to be what happens, but right now it's looking like it. Nostradamus in this bitch.
Well, I feel like that was everybody who was calling that.
No. It was just me. Me alone. But, I thought this match was fine. It's funny. I feel like Dave has overrated these matches just a bit. Like, he went 3.5 on the match before, which I'm like,
no,
I don't know about that.
No.
And then he went 4 stars on this one, which I feel like is I don't know. Maybe he just likes the excitement of the sub 15-minute time.
I went 4 on this match also.
I felt like that was a tad bit too high personally, but I did think that this was very good. Like we said at the beginning of the show, ZSJ is in the middle of a great month, and this was another great match that he's had, along with the Naito match, along with the Alex Zane match. So he's having a really strong month, and I thought that him and Dave Finlay had pretty good chemistry, but where the match really picked up was down the final stretch, where it was just like counter after counter, near fall after near fall, and these guys were just desperately trying to roll one another up. But ultimately, Dave Finlay got pulled into Zach's game, and he thought he'd be able to upset, the technical wizard, Zack Sabre Jr., and get him with one of his dad's World of Sport roll-ups. And it's like, dog, like, Zach, like, your dad taught you a couple things. Like, Zach, it's almost like that, remember the Dark Knight Rises when Bruce Wayne is fighting Venom, and he's like, you merely adopted the darkness. I was born in it, forged in it.
Yeah.
Like, that's Zack Sabre. He's like, you merely adopted World of Sport. I was raised in it.
Oh, man. Yeah. Yeah, Sabre also cut a great promo after the match. Again, talking about the techers, and he is strong style techers, which got him the win here. So yeah, really fun matchup that sends Sabre into the next round. And Finlay, another tough loss here. He's had a lot of big moments, a lot of big opportunities, and he's coming up short. And so I'm wondering if that's going to lead to some kind of storyline or some kind of development for the next steps for Dave Finlay.
Well, I feel like coming out of the G1, and I mean, obviously it's no surprise given that match, and then given the big title opportunity he had against Will Ospreay, he just kind of feels like a more established player. Maybe not like a top guy just yet, but like he doesn't feel like a joke. When before, every time he came back, he just felt like, LOL, Finlay loses, and it doesn't feel like a foregone conclusion, like he's just gonna eat the L. Now, if they keep having him lose and they don't do something with the momentum and they don't build him up, that can go away. But as of right now, he does feel like a player.
Yeah. So moving on to the October 30th Battle Autumn show, we had Doki defeating Kosei Fujita, Great Okan and Jeff Cobb defeating Oiwa and Yuto Nakashima, Hikuleo and Master Wato defeating Dick Togo and Evil, Alex Zane, Dave Finlay, and Tiger Mask defeating Taichi Taka and Zack Sabre Jr., Despy and Kanemaru defeating Gato and Daiji Shimori, Bushi, Hiromu, Naito, and Teton defeating Aaron Hanare, Francisco Akira, Gideon Gray, and TJP. And then in the semi-main event, we had a quarterfinal match in the tournament, Ren Narita defeating Toru Yano at 8 minutes and 47 seconds.
Even shorter Toru Yano match in this tournament than the previous one before it. And I felt like this one just worked on a lot of levels. You had a young lion returning from excursion who's hot and up and coming, but maybe he hasn't gotten the same kind of looks and, the same kind of like wily tactics in the past in his excursion experiences. And to go one-on-one with a master thief like Toru Yano, a trickster god, a guy who can, find many, many different ways to beat you without you realizing it. And for him to kind of have to pass that major test was kind of a compelling story. And we saw him, remove the turnbuckle pads and, tape up his boots and roll him under the ring and, use all these different tactics to try to get the guy out of here. But ultimately, Narita is just too much man for Toru Yano. And he just fucking stiffed the shit out of him. And I loved the way he put him away at the end. He did this running up like knee press sort of thing that I don't know if I haven't seen him do that in the past.
I haven't seen that do that either. I don't know if that's going to be one of his Narita specials. I know he has like multiple Narita specials.
Dude, it needs to be because he can't keep doing the drop on his head every single night for the rest of his career.
Yeah. But yeah, that was a great finish. And yeah, I thought Narita did a great job here, wrestling the Yano style match and kind of blending the styles together. Like you mentioned, Narita's kind of being, the strong style, frustrated guy is kind of wanting to get over with the shenanigans and running through all the Toru Yano bag of tricks to finally put him away. On the site, they're calling it the guillotine knee.
It was so cool. I mean, if you guys haven't seen it, go check the match out, obviously. But it's essentially like he runs up like it's not like a V trigger, but how do I describe it? Do you remember when people used to do like God, how do I describe this?
It's kind of like, it reminded me, which I thought what he was going to do was like almost like a running double stomp where people like run at you and jump up and do the stomp off the chest kind of thing.
There's a move. I don't know who does it, but it's like the reverse. Okay, so you know how a famouser works, right?
Yeah.
But someone used to do a version of that facing the guy where it was almost like a flying leg clothesline.
Yeah.
Except this was like that, but just with the knee. So like he jumps up and then comes down on top of them, but instead of it being a leg drop, it's a knee drop on their chest.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's super dope. Yeah, I hope he keeps using that as another finisher. But yeah, it looked really good in this matchup here. Overcame the Yano antics and advances to the next round. Then in the main event, the other quarterfinal match, we had Sanada defeating Kenta 13 minutes and 5 seconds.
This match was like how Sanada's facial hair is looking these days.
Pretty rough.
Total shit. Just fucking bad. This was the worst in a title tournament that is supposed to be youth centered, enticing for fans watching for free on social media, and fast paced action. This was none of those things. This is not a match I would ever show to anybody that I wanted to get into New Japan Pro Wrestling. This was not youth-based, and this was not fun or action-packed in any way. They spent... How long was this match? It was like
this match was 13 minutes. Yeah.
They had to spend at least 5 minutes of that time doing like spots where the guys weren't even wrestling and someone was just on the outside stalling or something like that.
Yeah, dude. The bell,
it was bad.
Yeah, the bell rings. Kenta immediately, pulls a Jay White, rolls out, powders, and he was legit like going in and out of the ring for like the first like 2 minutes of the match, and then they went to this whole thing of like, well, Sanada's like, I'm gonna go out, and then Kenta would run in, and Sanada would stay out, and then they would kind of do this whole back and forth, chasing each other until like,
bro. So I thought someone was hurt. To be honest with you, I felt like the only reason that as inconsistent as both of these guys are these days, the only reason I could conceivably think that they actually thought that this was a good idea to do in the main event of a show like this was someone was hurt and they're trying to protect them and kill some time.
Right, and especially with this being the main event, and these are two top stars in the company, you would think that they would give you a little bit something. Last week we did say, it's going to depend on which version of these guys show up, and the worst version of both of them showed up. You had stalling Kenta, who doesn't want to do anything, and it's all about the gimmick, and Sanada, who's just going to wrestle down to the level who he's in there with and is going to play along with the whole shenanigan stuff, and it was just not a good match. Like you mentioned, the majority of the match was them either outside or Kenta stalling until finally, I would say, I don't know, like maybe 7 minutes into the match, they actually finally got going to some kind of, back and forth sequences in the ring.
Yeah, I think this was the worst match of the tournament. And, down the tail end, there were some cool, like, roll-up exchanges and near falls, but it didn't make up for the lackluster nature of the match. If I was a paying audience member, someone that was going, to see 2 top stars work in this, inaugural title tournament, and it's supposed to be fast-paced and fun and active, I'd be pissed. I'd want my money back.
Yeah. Post-match, Sonato's...
I want my time back from watching that
match. Post-match, Sonato's cutting his lights out promo thing where he has the fans put their cell phone lights up, and Narita came out, cut that off. They had a little back-and-forth promo there, setting up their upcoming match.
I turned it off after that. I didn't go. Well, that plus it's there's no Chris Charlton and there's no English, so I just figured he was going to do his basic lights out. I should have guessed that that Narita would come out, but I guess I didn't care.
So that's going to lead to the conclusion of this tour. We have 2 shows at the end of this week. So first on November 3rd, and then the tour will close on November 5th with the big Battle Autumn show. Both these shows in Osaka. So starting with the preview of the November 3rd show. The show open up with Hiroshi Tanahashi and Toru Yano against Oiwa and Yuta Nakashima. Then we'll have Aaron Henare and Gideon Gray versus Hikuleo and Jado. David Finlay and Hanma will team up to take on Great Okan and Jeff Cobb. Doki, El Desperado, and Taichi will take on Gato, Kenta, and Taichi Shimori. Yoshinobu Kanemaru and Zack Sabre Jr. will take on Dick Togo and Evil. Then we'll have some singles matches here, previewing the upcoming junior tag team title match. So Bushi will take on Francisco Akira, and then in the semi-main event spot, TJP will take on Teton, and then in the main event, Alex Zane, Master Wato, and Ren Narita will take on Hiromu Takahashi, Sanada, and Tetsuya Naito.
So a couple things here. I mean, this is your typical, mostly typical, preview Battle Autumn Tour.
Go home.
Yeah. But a couple things. Tanahashi and Yano teaming together, that screams to me preview match for World Tag League. So don't be surprised whatsoever if their pompadour wearing, gimmick laced tag team duo makes its way or makes its return for World Tag League. I'm guessing that's probably going to be part of this.
Yeah. We could also get Oiwa and Nakashima as a Young Lion team in there. I feel like they've been teaming. I know Young Lions always team, but I feel like they've been teaming a lot during this stretch of the tour as well. So maybe we get those guys as a Young Lion team in there.
Well, they'd have to be heavyweight considering Yuto Nakashima's current state. Although then again, they have the audacity to try and say that, that Alex Zane is a junior. So you just never know. They play fast and loose with the rules there.
Somebody check those scales.
Other than that, though, I mean, just kind of taking a look here, I don't see anything else that's too noteworthy. The main thing is in the semi-main event, you got Bushi and Francesco Akira and TJP versus Teton, which is obviously a preview for the upcoming junior tag team title match. But we've seen this booking so many times where they do these singles matches especially with the juniors, just prior to a junior title match. And what normally happens is something occurs at the end of the first match requiring the other team members to come out and either cheat or break up a scuffle or yada yada. And it leads directly right into the other match right out the gate. And so don't be surprised if we get that here because it's happened a million times in this company.
Yeah, the Heyman ECW special, the one match bleeds into the next match. I could totally see that happening here. To continue to build up heat for that upcoming title match.
Yeah. And then, the main event, you got Zayn, Wato, and Narita taking on LIJ, Hiromu Sanada, and Naito. And that's not necessarily fitting the mold of what we've been seeing during this tour. We haven't seen a lot of Hantai versus LIJ action. It's mostly been LIJ versus United Empire. So this is probably just your highly enjoyable go home segment with, good workers to kind of get things, popped off. Plus, obviously, Narita and Sonata are on opposite ends and will be facing each other, for the tournament. But that match should be pretty good.
Yeah, should be really fun. So then we move to November 5th, the big show here that's going to be closing off this Battle Autumn Tour. So the show will open with the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team title match with Francisco Akira and TJP defending their titles against the LIJ team of Bushi and Teton. All throughout the tour on the undercard, these guys have been in, multi-man, 6-man, 8-man tags, both with teams kind of getting wins over each other to kind of build this. And like we just talked about, on the 3rd, there'll be those 2 singles matches that will also build to this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is last week when we did the preview, we talked about how Bushi and Teton had been kind of decimating Francesco Akira and TJP when it came to tag team action and a lot of the preview matches. But that's kind of gone by the wayside, whereas the United Empire team of Francesco and Akira and TJP have sort of become acclimated and even devised some new tactics that have been gaining them some success. So they kind of evened up the score over the past week just a bit. And so both teams are sort of on an even playing field here. And even though Francesco Akira and TJP are sort of a newer tag team, obviously they're the champions for a reason. They've had a lot of success. And they kind of have the experience edge over Bushi and Teton, who have both been in the game, admittedly, for a long time, but they don't have a lot of experience prior to this past tour with teaming together. That being said, I am glad to see the juniors kicking it off in the opener for the first time on a big show in what feels like forever. That used to be like from 2014 to 2017. Sort of like a staple of the division when the division was going through a hot period.
Yeah, this just feels right. A big show, being opened with a junior tag team title match with 2 really good teams here, with Akira and TJP and Bushi and Teton. And I know Bushi and Teton haven't really teamed a whole ton, but they have seemed to form some good chemistry on these multi-man undercard tags, and all 4 guys are flyers and high pace and great counters. So this should be a really fun opener that sets the night on a good pace.
Well, we always talk about how LIJ is this cohesive unit. And I think part of it is because of the luchador influence. The style of tag team wrestling they do is very reminiscent of what you would see on a Friday night in Arena Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
And so Teton's been able to kind of just plug right into what they do in those multi-man tag teams without skipping a beat. So, I am wondering to see if they're able to get the upset win here, because if they do, that would be another callback to that 2014-2017 period where these titles kind of passed hands a lot. But, the other cool thing about this is not only is it 2 good teams, like you mentioned, Jeremy, it's 2 new teams. We've lamented how this division has been so stagnant and devoid of compelling teams and challengers and champions. And now we've got 2 completely new, admittedly makeshift, but new teams that, to me, both seem fun, exciting, and have been doing really well against one another all throughout the undercards of this tour so far.
Yeah, and also our good friend Robbie Eagles was saying he's going to be keeping his eyes on this match, which makes me think we're either going to get maybe Flying Tiger into the picture, or maybe Eagles is going to have a new partner for the Junior Tag League and kind of claim his spot as, the next challengers.
Well, NJPW, what is it called? Masashi?
Tamahashi.
Tamahashi is getting ready to launch, and if I was Robbie Eagles and I was thinking about, I mean, you got two options. You could either team with like a Rocky Romero or a Yo, or some other Hontai member like Tiger Mask, or maybe you bring in one of the young guys from Australia who are going to be part of this new brand and maybe get some eyes on them, especially since the junior tag team title tournament's getting ready to kick off anyways. Just an idea.
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea, especially a great way to plug Tamahashi and kind of get people's attention on what's going over in Australia. So who you got winning this?
This is a tough call, but because these titles mean so little, I don't know. Well, here's the interesting thing, Jeremy. Normally, the junior tag team title, what is it called?
Super Junior Tag League.
Super Junior Tag League usually doesn't happen at the end of the year and doesn't usually have Wrestle Kingdom implications. So that kind of changes the whole entire trajectory of how I think about that division right now. And normally I would just say it wouldn't be uncommon for them to switch the titles, but I am a little concerned that you switch the titles now, right on the cusp of this tag league. I mean, whichever team loses here is probably going to be either on the road to redemption for a rematch at Wrestle Kingdom, or they're left out in the cold. So I'm really stuck on this one. What do you think?
I'm going to go with Akira and TJP. I like the run that they're on right now. They've really been building them up as dominant champions and a dominant tag team. So I like them getting the win here. Them being the number one seed in the Super Junior Tag League, being that top team there. And then you can set up some other team, beating them, because it's probably going to be single block. You have a team that upsets them. I'm guessing we're going to get some kind of three-way at Wrestle Kingdom. So you have a team that beats them in the tournament, and then you have another team that actually wins the league, and you do some kind of three-way like they've done in the past at Wrestle Kingdom. You get some kind of three-way, four-way, like we used to get with like the Bucks and Red Dragon and Roppongi 3K, Roppongi Bison, those guys. So I think I like Akira and TJP going into the Dome as champions.
That's not a bad call whatsoever. My only thing is there's just a long history of them changing the titles a lot. So based off just that sole logic alone, I'm going to go with LIJ. You bring in Teton, you establish him by putting the title on them. You get and plus Bushi's been without gold for years now. Get them going,
Yeah. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Bushi and Teton win. But personally, I think I would rather TJP and Akira keep the titles. So following that, we'll have Alex Zane, David Finlay, Hiroshi Tanahashi, and Toru Yano taking on United Empire's Aaron Hanare, Gideon Gray, and debuting in Japan, finally, Aussie Open, Kyle Fletcher, and Mark Davis.
So I know that everyone wants to talk about Aussie Open, and rightfully so, but I got to tell you, Jeremy, there's a new sheriff in town when it comes to the world of comedy wrestling. And I know for some people, this is no new surprise for them. For those Rev Pro fans or those, Brit Res fans, they probably have known this for a while. But on the world stage, this is new to us. And this man, Lord Gideon Gray,
yes,
he is the best comedy wrestler alive on the planet today. Better than Toru Yano and better than Big Match Taguchi.
Yeah, dude, I've been loving Gideon Gray. Guy's been hilarious in the matches. I love him doing the announcing, the ring announcements for the United Empire guys. He's getting over, those cheering crowds. They're digging Gideon Gray. There's so much about him. His packaging, he fits in great with the whole United Empire and being the benefactor. And yeah, just the way he wrestles, and it's just so hilarious. It's perfect, heel, squirmy heel that's not a really good wrestler, but thinks he is. It's great. I love it.
Yeah, and I can tell Kevin Kelly loves working off of him as well, because he just there's this whole rich backstory about how the only reason he's even in wrestling is because of his rich parents. He's a trust fund baby, essentially, or old money. And his family paid for all the best trainers in the world to give him the best, fundamental training that they possibly could get him. And so while other people had to scrap and, scrounge and save, and you hear stories about these old-time workers living out of their car, making dates, hitting the road, this guy wasn't doing that. He was living on his private estate, bringing in the best of the trainers from around the world to him to teach him how to be a worker. And it still didn't work because he still sucks. And he has every advantage. There was a funny spot where he was wrestling against Hiromu, and he's chopping, and Hiromu's not selling it. And then eventually realizes it's not working. So then he challenges Hiromu to give him a chop. So he's wearing an overcoat, takes the overcoat off. He's wearing a shirt, takes the shirt off. And then he's got the straps on from his singlet, pulls the straps down, turns around. And there's, Naito and Hiromu. And he thinks better if he puts the straps back up. I think he took one chop and he put the straps back up. He went and put the shirt back on. And he tried to put the jacket back on. And then they flung him into the ropes, Irish whip. And then he ducks it, and then he comes through like he's going to give him a double shoulder block, like he's the Road Warrior Animal, and they just move out of the way.
Oh, man.
And like all tour, he's doing stuff like this, and it's not the same thing night after night. Like we always talk about, like in the early days of United Empire, they're always fun and inventive and a different flair and a different kind of like creativity to their matches. He's right in line with that. This guy, I'm sure a lot of this might be old shtick, but even if it is, he's not doing the same shtick night after night. He's finding something new and inventive each night to kind of entertain the audience in the crowd, but also at home.
Yeah, he's definitely playing off of each opponent. He has a different game plan, it seems like, for each person he's in there with. And there's some hilarious like backstage comments with Hiromu where he's like, New Japan Pro Wrestling, please don't make me wrestle Gideon Gray anymore. Like, I don't understand him. He confuses me. He hurts my head.
There was also on the undercards during this past week, there was a match where it was him and probably Hinare, and they were facing off against the Lions. And I thought I know the Lions weren't going to win, but they started to get me believing that they were going to win because it's Lord Gideon Gray. And
right.
He doesn't even come off like a guy. He doesn't even come off like a Doki or a Hinare, a guy that just plows through a line because he can. He struggles hard with those dudes. Like he doesn't look like he belongs at all.
Right.
There was also the funny, because, and we'll get to it, Naito has been feuding with United Empire, but Will Ospreay hasn't been on the tour. So they've kind of had to serve as a quasi facsimile for him. But at the same time, there's no one on the group that can totally be the guy that, that you can't transfer that energy. So there's not a lot of heat going back and forth. So it's kind of just become about him and Lord Gideon Gray. And at one point he stole Gideon Gray's overcoat and stole his
the cane,
his cane. And he was coming out and at one point, one of the matches, Gideon Gray finally got the cane and the overcoat. We always talk about T-shirt Naito.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there was one night on the tour for the undercard where he was T-shirt Naito wearing an overcoat, even lazier than normal. And Gideon Gray got the overcoat back, and he goes, "Yeah." Bro, I saw this man wrestle in Orlando. I saw him wrestle Hornswoggle, and I just thought he was comedy, but not in a actually funny way, but more in a bullshit way. This sucks.
Yeah,
he's great. He is so great.
Yes, dude, I'm loving Gideon Gray. So that should be fun. Aussie Open finally in Japan. I would like them to get a win, but I mean, they got Gideon Gray on their team here.
I'm thinking that they're gonna be in World Tag League,
right?
And with that being the case, I think they need the win here. Looking at the teams that are in front of them, though. You got Tanahashi and Yano on the other side. Is there a chance with with World Tag League coming up, that we do see the emergence of Tanahashi and Yano start to debut those gimmicks, the pompadour and the overcoats, and maybe even pick up the win in this multi-man tag here. Gideon Gray is on the other side. Maybe Yano gets the roll up, and that sort of sets the stage for these two teams eventually facing off in tag league.
Yeah, I think the only hope for United Empire is if they can corner maybe like Alex Zane and get the pin on him. Maybe Aussie Open the Coriolis on him and get the win on him. But yeah, with Gideon Gray on there, it's going to be tough for United Empire to get the win here.
The other thing too, speaking of Alex Zane, I feel like he's in a precarious position because he got so over during Super Juniors this past year, but he no longer looks like a junior. And I don't know if he's ready to compete on that level with the heavyweights. I don't know if he's that over with the crowd or that over with management or even just that over in kayfabe to where he's currently a believable player in that realm, but he's so big, he kind of has to be. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I'm wondering if they're going to try and finesse and slide him in the Junior Tag League, or are they going to use him in the Heavyweight World Tag League?
I wonder if they're going to give him like a early Jeff Cobb sort of, like, remember how when Jeff Cobb was first here, they didn't know what to do with him, but they liked him, so they kept him around and gave him opportunities until something truly opened up where he could define himself as a character.
Yeah.
Because right now, that's sort of how he feels. He feels like this guy that's very popular. He's got things about him. He can work the live crowd. People like him, but he doesn't feel defined. He doesn't feel like someone where if he goes in the G1, I don't see him even going 500 right now. Not because he's not great, but because he's just ill-defined right now, as opposed to like all the other guys that are currently on the roster.
Yeah, and he did team with Mystico this past week on Strong, which I'm wondering if that potential junior tag team, if they're going to try and keep him as a junior.
Dude, him and Mystico in Tag League, if they do that, I don't think they're going to do that, but if they did, that would rule. That match was, we'll get to that match. It was awesome.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I am wondering also, I mean, him and David Finley are here. Maybe they're in Tag League together. I don't know what either guy is going to. We're getting to that point of the year where it's like, what are these guys going to do that are sort of left out in the cold to not be in the Rambo, to get some sort of spot on January 4th, especially since there's only one night.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with those guys.
Aaron Hanari's in the same boat as those guys too.
Yeah. And
who he's been awesome on this undercard tour, by the way.
Yeah, he's been like wrecking young lions, wrecking people in multi-man stuff. Yeah, I don't know what he's going to do because obviously Cobb and Ocon will probably be in Tag League. You have Aussie Open in Tag League. Doesn't really leave anybody for Hanari to team with unless you're going to team with Gideon Gray.
But ultimately, I think the story of this match is about establishing Aussie Open as this hot new act that's finally here in Japan. If it was me, I would give them the win, but I won't be surprised if Gideon Gray ends up eating the loss just because that's what he's there to do, you know?
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think that Alex Zane, I'm gonna be bold here and say Alex Zane eats a Coriolis.
That's what I would like to see. So yeah, I'm gonna go with that too.
Although Yano could eat it too.
He could, but if they're gonna push Yano and Tanahashi, they might want to protect
him.
You're
right. Yeah.
Especially he just lost to Narita.
Nice.
So up next we have Yujiro Takahashi versus Hikuleo. So here's the whole update on the never open weight Carl Anderson situation. So we got a statement from New Japan this week saying, despite extensive efforts by New Japan Pro Wrestling to negotiate with Carl Anderson regarding his scheduled match in Osaka at Battle Autumn on November 5th, NJPW officials have still been met with no response and have been left with no other option but to cancel the planned never open weight championship match. We apologize to the fans who've been looking forward to watching Anderson wrestle. After a challenge from Yujiro Takahashi and a direct request of Hikuleo, Osaka will now see a non-title special singles match between Yujiro Takahashi and Hikuleo.
Yeah, so there had been previously a public statement that if Carl Anderson didn't make the November 5th date, that he would be officially stripped of the title. I think Obari had mentioned that.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of back and forth about what is real, what is fake. I basically, this is what was reported by the guys over at Voices of Wrestling, the reporting coming from Joe Lanza. Give those guys a follow on their, what is it?
Patreon.
Yeah, they have a Patreon, which is well worth the follow. And, kind of in a nutshell, because I don't want to give everything, but they essentially said Carl Anderson had been negotiating for a long time with WWE. And this is what they're...
Since August.
And this is what they've been told. And based on what we know, I will tell you this. I believe that Joe has the best sources of anybody that's in media right now when it comes to New Japan Pro Wrestling. Take that for what you want to believe. I wouldn't say that unless I truly actually thought that was an accurate statement. Anyways, New Japan was very aware that they were already negotiating with WWE, and then there were certain dates that had been outlined that they were supposed to work along the time that they were negotiating with WWE. The conflict arose that they were needed in Saudi Arabia, and obviously he's the champion and they want him to drop the belt, but there were no major cards prior to November 5th to where that could work. And then following that, there's not very many other than, like, say, Historic Crossover, World Tag League Finals, or January 4th. And WWE's kind of hands off from the whole thing. They're aware he's the champion. They're aware that they've given him, in theory, the approval to go drop the belt and then finish up. So apparently they've given him like one date to work. And there's been a lot of negotiation about what that date would be, whether it would be not, 11/5 or 11/21 or World Tag League Finals or 1/4, or even one of the Strong tapings. And I don't even know that as of the time of this recording that that's fully been worked out. I expect it to be January 4th. What ended up happening is, because he was the champion, they basically already knew that he was not going to make the 11/5 date when they announced that he would be facing Hikuleo on 11/5. The reason for that is kind of what I speculated last week, is that they tried to make a storyline out of the entire ordeal to say that he's holding up the title and he's unwilling to play ball and unwilling to do business, and he's taking the bigger payday in WWE. This is all an attempt, and it was approved by the office. It was something, and that's why you have like Chris Charlton and Rocky and all these different guys commenting in kayfabe saying, fuck this guy, tell him to bring the belt back, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And him cutting promos, saying you guys didn't go through the big LG. Is that his name? LG?
Yeah, Luke Gallows. Yeah.
Oh, I never know why they call him the LG. That makes sense, Luke Gallows. I just don't give a fuck about him enough to like even care like why. I don't know. I thought it was like his phone or something. You didn't go through Luke Gallows, my booking agent, and I'm booked for a bigger night, bigger lights, blah, blah, blah. Like it was very apparent that this whole thing was a work, but just to what extent, nobody was sure. So they announced that he wouldn't be able to make the date as a means of protection for New Japan, because hypothetically, if WWE changed their minds and said, hey, this guy, we're just going to pull him, like, we're not going to play around with this. We're tired of all this back and forth. Just, we need you for something else. It's done. You're not going to finish up the date. New Japan can say, we announced you for a date. You didn't make the date. We're stripping you of the title. So they have an actual public kayfabe reason to potentially strip him if needed at this point, instead of just saying the champion left with the belt to go work for WWE.
Yeah.
At the same time, they want him to come back and drop the belt. He wants to come back and drop the belt. And so does Hikuleo. Hikuleo wants him to come work the program with him. So it sounds like they probably already arranged it. It's not confirmed, but it sounds like probably January 4th is when we're going to get that big match. And in the meantime, Hikuleo's been lobbying night after night, match after match on the undercards of Battle Autumn Tour, like, hey, look, I'll wait. Don't strip this guy of the belt. I want to beat him for the belt. I don't want to beat someone else for the title. Let's do the match when he's ready, when he can make it over here. Let's do it. So he looks like the triumphant, self-assured, confident guy that's willing to wait his turn to get his hands on this, scoundrel who has absconded with the belt to New York, and he's ready to win it back for New Japan and for Hantai's glory.
Right. I think which works out great for him with the recent babyface turn and enjoying Hantai and the way he's been getting over with the Japanese crowd. So, yeah, he's kind of being the defender of Shinny Han, defender of the Cerulean Blue, defender of the Lion Mark, and wanting to fight the evil WWE representative in Carl Anderson. We do have a question here from Matt on Twitter saying, how bad would you feel about yourself if at any aspect of your life you were replaced with Yujiro and people considered it an upgrade?
Nobody considers a Yujiro match an upgrade over a Carl Anderson match. I'm sorry to tell you. I understand the joke, and it's funny, but it's not even kind of accurate, because I would rather watch a million Carl Anderson matches than, well, not a million, but I'd rather watch a lot of Carl Anderson matches than a lot of Yujiro matches.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Hawaiian Punch BB says, last week on Raw, Finn Balor beat Carl Anderson in a singles match. Does that make Finn Balor the lineal, never openweight champion? Shouldn't Balor be the main focus for Hikuleo's inevitable chokeslam to hell?
That's pretty funny. I didn't know that. I don't know, because I don't know who the actual lineal never openweight champion is. I mean, it inevitably is probably not Carl Anderson. You got to start from the inception of the title, and then
start with Tanaka and work your way up there.
Work your way. Who knows? MVP might be champion right now. You don't know. It could be Warhorse. You have no idea.
Yeah.
It could be Jordan Grace. It could have swapped to the other side. You just don't know. It could be anybody.
The other side. Oh, man.
Well, people get weird when you say gender, so I don't know. I don't want to offend anybody.
Oh, man. So Yujiro and Hikuleo. So clearly, I think Hikuleo is going to get the big win here, beat Yujiro, and continue to build momentum until we await the return of Carl Anderson, like you said, which will probably be January 4th in the Tokyo Dome, and Hikuleo will get his big win there, win the title, and save the title from WWE and Carl Anderson.
Yeah, and all throughout the undercards of this tour the past week, Hikuleo's just looked like a monster. Just, he's been fucking up Bullet Club guys. Like,
yeah, dude, that choke slam is monstrous. He gets those guys super up there and just drops them.
Listen, I know that, like, there are fans that don't like the choke slam, because you look at the list of great quote unquote wrestlers that like used it, and it's like Undertaker, Kane, Big Show, Khali. It's like big dudes use it. But there was a time, I don't know if you remember, Jeremy, but I sure remember when those guys were young, and they used, when Big Show used to fucking murk people, when he was the Giant, and he would put them all the way up and then fall down with them.
Yes.
Like, it was the best. Or like when 911 would come out and his whole gimmick was just the choke slam, like fools off of shit. Like, it was the best thing ever. Like, I don't like a lazy choke slam, but I love a good, large, impactful fucking choke slam, and that's what Hikuleo does. It's awesome.
Yeah, there was one multi-man match where he was up against Suzuki-gun and Taichi was in there. Taichi likes to choke and do some kind of choke slam kind of stuff sometimes, and he was trying to choke Hikuleo, but Hikuleo proved that his choke was stronger than Taichi's.
I forget what the technical term of what Taichi does, but it's an homage to the Taue choke slam. I don't think it's really called a choke slam, but it essentially is one. But that's what he's doing. He's doing the Taue move, and it's a little different.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to get too much into the weeds with this again. I know we've done a lot of discussion on this for 3 weeks now.
Yeah.
But last week I said you were basically saying, let's just strip Carl, let's be done with it, because you don't want to see Carl anyways.
Right.
And I was kind of saying that from a kayfabe perspective, this just seemed like what needed to happen for business. And I am even more firmly of that opinion this week because I want to see Carl Anderson drop the belt to Hikuleo. And now that we've sort of moved away from the discourse a bit and it's not the talk of the wrestling Twitter and, you know, all the different, you know, forum. I don't even know where people talk about wrestling anymore, but the forums and the discords. And now it's more just about the story. Have you moved more to my side with wanting to see Hikuleo get this big, like, kind of built up win? Or would you rather New Japan have just audibled away from the guy altogether and done something different?
Well, I said last week, I think from a business standpoint, I do think this probably makes the most sense. You want to get the big, you want to, you know, use Carl Anderson, you want to get the big win on Hikuleo. So, I mean, overall, I mean, I'm fine with it. I mean, I really don't want to have to watch Carl Anderson wrestle, but it is what it is. I do think overall it's going to be a great moment for Hikuleo. Like I was saying, you know, him being this defender of New Japan Pro Wrestling, especially in this new kind of role, being in Hantai and this kind of new expanded version of Guerrillas of Destiny with him and Tama and Tangaloa and Jado. I think it's going to be something that really elevates him to that next level. You know, we're talking about, you know, the youth movement that needs to happen. Well, Hikuleo is another guy that was in that young lion class with guys like Narita and Umino and that kind of 2017, 2018 class. And so him finally kind of getting a big moment, you know, after being, you know, in the U.S. for a while now, doing stuff for New Japan Strong. I think it's kind of great to get him going, get another young guy going. You know, we have Narita that's getting the push now. I think, yeah, it'd be great to get the push going with Hikuleo as well. Yeah, and again, you know what? It doesn't even have to end up being a long match. I don't know what they'll do. Again, it's a one-night Tokyo Dome. There's going to be a lot of matches. There's going to be a lot of matches that need time. I mean, you could have him go out there, bell rings, grabs Carl, choke slams him 1, 2, 3, yep, and gets him out of there ASAP and like wrecks Carl Anderson and put him over really strong.
Yeah, I mean, the two things I'll say about it is, one, I do think the fact that even though we mentioned last week there wasn't enough, you know, focus on Hikuleo, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like some of that is starting to shift in this storyline progression, and I feel like that's a good thing. And I do think that this is the most attention the Never titles had in what feels like forever, probably since at least when Jay White won the title, you know, a year and a half, 2 years ago, whenever that was.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's a good thing. And then from the other sense, it's like there were people that were really believing this whole thing was, you know, one thing or the other. They thought there was a working relationship with WWE. They thought that, you know, this was all, you know, a shoot and the company needed to take action and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, I feel like ultimately the fact that they are looking to invest in Hikuleo and give him a moment and really establish him as opposed to acting rashly and potentially harming the belt or even harming the reputation of the company. Although there's definitely things to criticize here and we've mentioned them over the past several weeks. We're not shying away from them. Company never should have put the title on a guy that they didn't have an actual contract with.
Right.
And that will always be the case. And that's the whole reason we're in this mess to begin with. But I do think the fact that they're trying to give a young guy a moment, keep the lineage of the title somewhat, you know, prestigious and also save face at the same time, I think those are all probably good things in the long, you know, and the long form storytelling of it all, as opposed to just being like, this guy went to WWE, he went to greener pastures, and now we're stuck. We're gonna vacate the belt. That I understand that people don't want to see Carl Anderson, and I'm right there with you, but I'd much rather see Hikuleo get his moment. A guy that we on this podcast have been invested in for years and years and years. I'm glad that we're probably gonna finally get that payoff.
Yeah, and you know what? We probably could get a video after this match from Carl Anderson saying, you know, I'm only showing up for the biggest and brightest lights. That means Tokyo Dome, January 4th. That's when I'll show up to face you.
Yeah, and I hope he fucks him up. And he's undoubtedly going to fuck up Yujiro. Like, I don't expect this Yujiro match to go very long at all.
No. So then following that, we have the 2 semifinal matches in the NJPW World Television Title Tournament. So in one semifinal, we'll have Sonata versus Ren Narita. And then the other semifinal will be Zack Sabre Jr. versus Evil. And we had a question here from @WrestlingDad101 on Twitter. It says, my heart says Ren Narita. My head says Zack Sabre Jr. as the first NJPW TV champion. Do you guys think NJPW would be fucking surprising everyone and go with Narita? Thoughts?
Well, the good news, we don't have to really answer that question until January 4th. So, I mean, it's going to be November. We got like a month and a half, 2 months before we actually even have to address that side of things. But that's also supposing that Sonata and Evil don't end up in the finals against each other or somebody else, which are both plausible things.
When I looked it down, I saw Sonata and Evil on opposite sides. I was like, oh my gosh. Like they could easily do that. Oh my gosh, and tell that story again.
If they do Evil and Sonata, it will tell you how, like, I don't know what the right word is, but they're just tone deaf.
Yeah.
It's how tone deaf the company is, and also lacking in vision that they are. Because that would just be it would be a bad idea just across the board. That'd be. I know that there's a lot of things that people like to point to that are issues with the company, blah blah blah, and some of it is legit, some of it's not. But this would be like a big misstep to where like I'd have to really reevaluate how I'm thinking about the booking of this company. And
yeah, if that's the match, throw the belt in the bin, like scrap it. Like, yeah, forget the tournament happened. Like it'd be horrible with that being the final. So,
but yeah, I do think that they have put themselves in a position though, from a booking standpoint, where they've got Evil, Sonata, and Zack, who are all three plausible guys who could easily be the first champion in kayfabe. I mean, they all have a lot of accolades and accomplishments and yada, yada, yada. And then you got Narita, the young gun, who is fresh off excursion, who seems tailor-made for this division. So in that sense, it's been booked well. But if we wind up with any situation where Sonata or Evil or a combination of the two end up in the finals, something has gone terribly awry.
Yeah.
The nice thing is, like, there's nine matches on this show. And normally if you'd see 2 singles matches here, you're like, you don't know what the time frame's looking like here, but at max you're looking at 30 minutes combined for both matches.
Right.
So it's like it's gonna be a breeze. And that's kind of nice to know that about these types of matches, because they're gonna be sprints.
Yeah, especially with Zack Sabre and Narita. Like, I feel like Narita is gonna force Sonata to wrestle, a sprint in a more serious matchup with Sabre. Same thing with Evil. We've seen Sabre Evil matches, and they actually have been decent, like the ones in the G1. And Sabre again kind of force Evil to wrestle a little bit more than he normally does. We know Sabre can eat people up and really make him wrestle his game. So that could end up being the better Evil match in this whole tournament. But yeah, I'm hoping, like most fans predicted from day one, that we do end up with Ren Narita and Zack Sabre Jr. winning their respective matchups and end up being in the finals and facing off at Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah, and I mean, with Sonata, the technical acumen, the roll-ups and crazy submissions, those are all sort of like new tests that Narita has yet to overcome, and maybe he will, maybe he won't. It's hard to say. And then with Zack, it's like, you know what you're getting there, but then Evil has his bag of tricks and his many cheating ways. And so I am going to predict that it's Narita and Zack, because that just seems like, from a booking standpoint, the best thing you could do. Like the most fun, the most exciting. Like the most positive direction you could go in, and that's what I'm hoping for. But these are far from open and shut, like foregone conclusions. Like this could go any possible way right now. And also with Zach and Evil, didn't Zach beat Evil in like no time in the G1 this past year?
Yeah, he beat him in like 30 seconds.
So there's also like the revenge aspect where and also Evil attack. I don't know if you saw the post match, but after they went off the air in the post match comments, like Evil jumped Zach and choked him out, and tried to get the upper hand leading into this match as well.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, there's a plausible case there. Like, all right, Evil's going to get his revenge. He's going to use all the House of Torture gimmicks and distractions to pull one over on Zach. Or you could have the heel getting egg on his face again, where he tries extra hard to beat Zach, but just ends up falling into Zach's trap once again, and Zach beats him even faster. That would be the best case scenario, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're one of those people listening and being like, they're absolutely going to do Narita Zach, it's done deal, like there's no way they do something different, just think to yourself, 2 years ago or a year ago it was like 2 or 3 years ago, Sonata was in the G1 finals against Ibushi.
Yeah. Evil
was the double gold champ in New Japan Pro Wrestling. These are two guys that they like are kind of invested in and could easily, they're easily like put the first title on. So
in one sense it's kind of, it might seem predictable, but it's not. It's unpredictable. You don't know how Gale's going to book. He can go Evil Sonata. I mean, he could go Sonata Sabre. We know Sonata and Sabre have a history. They've wrestled at Wrestle Kingdom before for the Rev Pro British title. And they have great matches together too. So I mean, I guess that's like the next best option.
No, if Narita loses, like Narita should not be out of this tournament. He needs to be in the finals. I'm not saying he needs to win, but he needs to be in the finals. If he's not in the finals after all this build on January 4th, then what the fuck are we doing?
Yeah, well, what was the whole point? Like, why didn't he just lose to Ishii then?
Yeah, we're gonna put Sonata and Evil in the youth title, finals
in the youth high speed exciting title.
Here's the other thing too, is like as difficult it is to kind of predict these two matches, it's also difficult to predict as to what the quality of the matches are going to be. I know that we mentioned they're going to be short, but it's like Sonata Narita could be great or it could be really bad because Sonata's just so inconsistent. And you know what? ZSJ and Evil, it's fucking Evil. So that could be really great or really bad. And I don't know. Well, you know what I mean? Like, I just don't know.
Yeah.
Best case scenario, two really good matches where Ren Narita and Zack Sabre Jr. both win, and that becomes the January 4th Tokyo Dome match.
Yeah, and also there's the whole Shibata connection. Those are the two guys that he wrestled in exhibition matchups, and with Shibata being, Narita's mentor and trainer, like there's a whole story they can do. That they could have Shibata present the title at Wrestle Kingdom, make this whole kind of big moment. So I think that's the better story. Like you said, the best case scenario for this show. So moving on from there, we're having what is billed as the Incredible Tag Match. So we're going to have Hiromu Takahashi, El Desperado, Master Wato, and Taiji Ishimori. The tag partners will be decided on November 4th. I know some sites are saying that the match is already decided, but on the site it said November 4th they will have this decision on who's going to be teaming up with who for this incredible tag match, which is previewing the 4-way title match coming up January 4th at Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to really say here. All throughout the Battle Autumn tour, we've been seeing different collections of Despi, Hiromu, Wato, and Ishimori in multi-man tag matches against one another. And There's not much really to say about it. It's been somewhat lackluster. It hasn't felt like when these guys are in the matches against one another that we're building to any singular focused theme or issue. I guess in theory it's all leading to this match, and hopefully this will bring a little bit more focus to this four-way for January 4th. But right now, I have little to no investment concerning it at all. I mean, these guys might as well have just been like random dudes just teaming in undercard preview matches with no stakes involved whatsoever, because there's been no compelling post matches or pre matches or segments in the matches. Like, it's just kind of just been, they're all going to fight each other. And maybe it's because of the fact that it's a four-way that it's lacking focus or lacking heat. Like, for me, this is something that I just have very little interest in, and it shouldn't be that way considering the principles involved.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's some wrench thrown in with their plans with Kushida being out with his the hand, foot, and mouth disease, and clearly he was planned to be in this picture somehow. So I'm sure that's probably thrown off the booking pattern of what they were planning to do here. But I agree with you. There hasn't been a ton of buzz or excitement on what's going on with the junior title picture or these four guys here. So yeah, it should be, a fun tag team matchup, and hopefully something comes out of this that will get some interest for the January 4th matchup.
Tired of long waits and rushed care at the ER and urgent care clinic? Next time, stay home and let Dispatch Health bring the power of the hospital to you.
I call Dispatch Health. A care team of medical professionals actually come to your house.
They're the same caliber of people that you would see if you were at a hospital or an urgent care.
Dispatch Health can treat most non-life-threatening emergencies.
They can do the x-rays, they can do stitches,
Urinary tract infections, blood test, urinalysis, ultrasound.
It's almost everything that they can do at the ER.
You never feel rushed. They're there for you and only you.
I felt like their only patient.
And it costs no more than a trip to urgent care because Dispatch Health is covered by most insurance, including Medicare. See if we serve your home at dispatchhealth.com.
Dispatch Health really went above and beyond.
It's wonderful to have care come to your home.
House calls are back, and they're better than ever. Learn more at dispatchhealth.com.
So moving on to the next matchup, we're going to have Kazuchika Okada and Tama Tonga taking on the Bullet Club team of Switchblade, Jay White, and Kenta. Also, this is going to be a preview matchup for the Okada-Jay White match coming up at Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah, and we just had another preview match this past week during Rumbl on 44th Street, plus the night before Rumbl on 44th Street. So this is another in a series of preview matches leading to the January 4th Tokyo Dome match between Jay White and Okada. I don't have much to say here. I mean, this is essentially just a preview tag match.
Yeah, it's going to be exactly what we've kind of been seeing from these guys, and it should be fun. So moving on to the semi-main.
I do think that we'll see Kenta take the loss here, though, because Tama Tonga was recently defeated by Jay White, and I kind of think Okada needs to pick up a win along the way here.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, Okada needs some momentum. I could see Kenta eating a gun stun and giving Tama momentum. Not sure if Tama's going to be in World Tag League. Tangaloa is still out. I mean, you could do him and Hikuleo. So we'll see what they're going to do. Because, like you mentioned, a lot of guys who are kind of, looking for their spot come Dome season. Tama Tonga's now in that position as well, with him losing that title match, and it's kind of questionable if he's going to be in Tag League or not. So it's kind of like, all right, where does this guy fit in with all the momentum that he's had latter half of the year?
At the same time, when you say people need momentum, it feels like Okada and Jay White both need the momentum. And I don't know, maybe to the detriment of Tama, they have him eat a Blade Runner.
We'll see, yeah. So moving on to the semi-main event of the evening, IWGP Tag Team Title match. The champions FTR, Cash Wheeler and Dax Harwood, finally making it to Japan to defend their titles, and they will defend against Great Okan and Jeff Cobb from the United Empire. A lot of history here with these two teams. They were in the three-way match at Forbidden Door with Roppongi Vice, which was the match FTR won the titles by pinning Roppongi Vice, not Jeff Cobb and Great Okan. So kind of some heat here between these two teams. Okan and Cobb have also been one of the top teams in New Japan the last 2 years now, been very dominant. FTR super over right now, 3 tag team titles they're currently holding. So the two top teams from New Japan AEW kind of facing off here finally.
Do not be surprised if FTR retain their titles here.
Yeah, I won't be surprised. I mean, I know last week I was more in the camp of just having Jeff Cobb and Great Okan beating these guys and sending them packing back to AEW. But I could see January 4th something being worked out where you have FTR work their way to January 4th and drop the titles there, and Cobb and Okan having to win World Tag League or be in some kind of tie at World Tag League to find their way back into the title picture.
Maybe. It might not be them. I'm not convinced that it's going to be Khan and Cobb winning the belts back on January 4th, although it could be. I'm not opposed to that.
Yeah, I mean, Aussie Open's a great option. You could run that back, especially
that's the other thing I was thinking of.
Because they just they dropped the strong tag titles, which we'll talk about here in a second. And they're finally in Japan. So, yeah, you could have Aussie Open, get the rematch of FTR, the anticipated rematch, get the big win, and get the tag titles. Yeah.
And I'm not saying they're going to do that, but that makes a lot of sense as well. Also, I mean, who knows? What if, we don't know this, but what if Tangaloa's back and we get GOD back?
Yeah, they could do that too, yeah.
That's a possibility. But I think this match is going to be really good. Obviously, both teams are really great. This will get a lot of interest from certain sects of the Western audience that are very much behind FTR. So that's always a positive, and the match should deliver. I'm pretty positive right now FTR are going to retain. And the main reason I say that is just because I know for all the criticisms that this show has had about FTR and their title reign and their defenses or lack thereof, it does simplify things a lot when the champions are just not in World Tag League, because then you don't, especially in a single block scenario, because you don't have to worry about multiple rematches and future title challengers. You can just have the prize waiting for you on January 4th and let the whole entire World Tag League be insulary, where those guys are all insulated and fighting each other. And then the winners or winner come out and try to take the belt off these guys in the Tokyo Dome, which is, I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, and Tony Khan has said he does plan to send people over for Wrestle Kingdom, and this year Wrestle Kingdom and Dynamite are on the same day. But I feel like FTR are guys that you can send over there to Japan, and you wouldn't really miss them from a Dynamite. It wouldn't hurt the rating or probably hurt any storylines that are happening right now. So I think from that standpoint, it works out as well.
At the same time, if they do drop the belts to Khan and Cobb, that's a great story. This has been one of the most dominant teams all throughout New Japan for several years now, with very few losses. So if they pick up the win, I won't be surprised, but it is kind of a nice little feather in the cap of AEW/FTR, because it's like, yeah, they weren't very active here, but they got a super meaningful win over one of the best tag teams in the company. And then you come back on January 4th, you drop those belts. That just makes more sense from a business perspective to me. That's what I think they're doing. I don't think they're coming over here to work this date so that they can not work January 4th. I think that they're, you know what I mean? I think that they're going to work Tokyo Dome, and I think they're going as champions.
Yeah, and that plays into a question that we got from Bash, is do you think FTR makes it for Wrestle Kingdom for Western fan interest, or they pop the belts on Khan on the Cobb, and we get Aussie Open versus Khan on the Cobb or for Wrestle Kingdom.
No, because I don't think they would do interfactional tag team title matches at Wrestle Kingdom anyways.
Yeah, I mean, I could see maybe a 3-way where it's Aussie Open versus FTR versus Jeff Cobb and Great O'Khan. I could see maybe that if they want to do something like that, but I doubt we would get straight up Jeff Cobb and Great O'Khan versus Aussie Open. So both going with FTR on that one, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that brings us to the main event of the evening. The IWGP United States Heavyweight title will be on the line. The champion, the Commonwealth Kingpin, Will Ospreay, will defend the title against the ungovernable Tetsuya Naito.
This is interesting because, Will hasn't been on the tour almost at all. So the heat between him and Naito has been non-existent whatsoever. But at the same time, Naito's definitely the deserving title challenger based off his major singles victory over Zack Sabre Jr. over in London. So, plus the history between these two guys back at the G1 semifinals this past year. Thank God that the match is going to be very good considering the people involved, because if not, the story, it's pretty lacking. There's almost nothing behind it.
Yeah,
but
I think
the match is going to be awesome.
Yeah, I think a lot of the heat from this match has just been based off of the G1 match. Like, hey, we had an awesome match in the G1. We're going to do it again here in Osaka.
Yeah, and for all of his, the fact that he wasn't on the tour, Will's done a lot on social media to try and build this up. I don't know how effective that is or isn't, but, hats off to him for making an attempt. But, I know wrestling fans can be a little bit spoiled in the fact that we get so much all the time and we never seem happy. But when you do have a major card like this coming up, it seems like the people in the main event should be there to some extent building it up. I don't know if that was possible. Who knows what's going on? I mean, granted, both of these guys are probably long overdue for a rest and deserving of it for sure. But at the same time, the show goes on and there's a match to promote. It kind of reminds me of when Kenny was going to defend the IWGP title against, I believe it was like Ishii or someone like that. He just wasn't on the tour and then showed up and defended the title. And it was like, damn, like he was having matches with like Phoenix over in New York instead of like working the show. That's sort of what this kind of reminds me of. And I'm not sitting here like throwing barbs at Ospreay because I don't know his situation. But from a promotional standpoint, it hasn't really been effective because he hasn't been there. So, there's no heat.
Yeah, I do know Ospreay had mentioned like planning to reduce his schedule like towards this part of the year and do some less dates. So maybe this was part of that. New Japan let him take this tour off since obviously he's been killing himself all year long in multiple promotions across the world. So yeah, maybe this was just his time off. Unfortunately, it came when he's supposed to be building a big U.S. title match. World Tag League is coming up. That's a tour he probably won't need to be on, so it probably would have, I think, maybe could worked out, but it is what it is. He wasn't on tour, but we do know it's going to be an excellent matchup. It should be on the same level from their G1 semifinals match this year, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's high stakes here, two top main event guys, and it's a match that can go either way. And also, both of these guys you got to figure are planned into the Tokyo Dome in singles matches in some way. So you could have either one of these guys walking into the Tokyo Dome with the title to set up their match. And both of these guys are big enough stars where they don't need a title to have a hot match at the Tokyo Dome. We know there's the rumored Kenny Omega match for Will Ospreay, and Kenny and the Bucks are finally off suspension or are going to be coming back to AEW shortly. So you could do Kenny versus Ospreay, title or not title. And then, I mean, Naito, there could be somebody from AEW or some other guy who challenges Naito for a big match where Naito wouldn't need the title.
Well, Naito had recently done some sort of interview, and he mentioned, what if there was a name that wasn't in New Japan that was big enough to, kind of break the rules, essentially, almost like saying, open the forbidden door without using the phrase forbidden door.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a big match on January 1st happening over in Noah where Shinsuke Nakamura is returning to Japan to wrestle Keiji Muto, or the Great Muta. And that's just days before this. And for all the talk during this, and I shouldn't say that Ospreay hasn't been on the tour, because he was in the early parts of the Battle Autumn tour, I believe, where he was cutting the promos on Naito. But for all the talk of like the IC belt versus the US belt during the course of this whole thing, I know, like you mentioned, originally the thought was they're probably going to have Ospreay win and turn that into Ospreay versus Omega. I'm just assuming. But what if they pivoted, given the fact that maybe they can't get that match right now just because of the timing and the circumstances? And what if they did do like Naito versus Nakamura because he's there, and maybe we just don't know about it and it could happen? Or Naito versus Muto, who they have history with one another. They've actually worked, I believe, the Tokyo Dome against one another in the past. Yeah, they had the Genius versus Genius match. Those would be the types of names that I think he was alluding to, quote unquote. The other thing too, what if for Naito, hypothetically, what if one of the big AEW names like Jon Moxley, who is the current champion, were up for on the table?
Yeah, I mean, Moxley's a guy I've been kind of thinking about just based off his new contract and promotion, and he's going to be, working with the international partners, especially New Japan, and we know Mox loves working the Dome, and that would be a big matchup to do Moxley and Naito, or
even Ospreay if they couldn't get Omega, because he's probably going to, what if that ends up, and they have history with each other this past year as well.
Right, based off the Windy City Riot, there was that whole scurry finish there. So yeah, you could do a big rematch with Ospreay and Mox also, yeah.
Because right now, for both of these guys, there just doesn't seem to be, unless you did something creative, I'm not saying there's nothing, but right now, on paper, given the trajectory and the slotting and the placement of all the stars in New Japan, there doesn't seem to be a path after this is over currently for the loser or even the winner for what January 4th holds for either of them. And that's why it feels so open for either one to win, depending on where you wanted to take the booking for either one of them. But it's definitely the case where they're two of the biggest stars in the company. It's probably assumed that they're both going to be in some sort of major match at January 4th. And we don't really know who that is going to be right now for either of them. So the chances of retention or a new champion are, for me, like 50-50 right now. It's really a pick-em match.
Yeah, and I'm definitely going to say angle alert here. I think we're going to get something at the end of this match that will definitely set up the winner's match for Wrestle Kingdom.
The only other two places where something like that could essentially be the case is the historic crossover or World Tag League Finals, because that's kind of the rest of the calendar.
Yeah.
I don't know what to think here. I am excited for the match because given how I do think that they have a pretty high mark to hit. I don't know if they can go out there and put on the same kind of match they did the first time, but I am looking forward to it because I think it's going to be good. But I think Naito's going to win the title.
Yeah, I feel with him already losing to Ospreay this year, I think he gets the win back, and yeah, he goes into the Dome with the red strap.
Yeah, and I mean, that would be something that would be good for the lineage of the title as well. He's a guy that he's never held that belt. They're trying to establish it as the number 2 belt in the company, and they've had good champions, but for better or for worse, Tetsuya Naito is still one of the absolute top stars for the domestic audience in Japan, and putting the red belt on him goes a long way to telling the audience that, hey, this is like, the top, one of the top belts in the company, and kind of putting it back on the same level as the IC strap was.
Yeah.
The other thing too is, I remember what it was. The reason he was talking about trying to fight someone from the outside is because he was speculating on the idea of what if there was a big enough match for him to where they could. He was talking about how there didn't seem to be as much intrigue concerning Okada and Jay White, and what if there was a way for them to get him a big enough opponent to where they could put the thing up to a fan vote, and maybe he can headline over Okada and Jay White.
Yeah.
This man's so obsessed with that idea, but like, you'd have to imagine that if that were the case, he would need a really big opponent. And that's one of the reasons why I kind of speculated on Nakamura, because who usurped him in the past? It was Tanahashi and Nakamura. Who has the longest, history with the white strap aside from him? It's Nakamura, and Nakamura's in town. And I don't know if WWE would say yes to this, but I didn't think they'd say yes to him wrestling Muto at Budokan Hall. So why not just let him fucking wrestle, Naito in the Dome?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only problem with that is New Japan has a U.S. presence and is trying to crack into the U.S. market and is clearly aligned with AEW.
Sure.
So, I mean, I have a hard time seeing them allow Nakamura to do that, but, I mean, never say never in the wrestling business, and it's...
Weird shit's happening in 2022.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing with them even, like, working with Noah, and also that gives me the heebie-jeebies altogether, because I thought NXT Japan, the whole prospect of it was long dead and gone, and now I'm nervous because this man, Triple H, seems to be dead set on correcting his failures and his mistakes and correcting course and going back to what he was doing before Vince and AEW and Riho ruined his plans. And, he hired all the same goons that they'd fired, the ones that either were or weren't working. Regardless, he brought all his boys back. He brought back all his production team. And, he's making all these changes. And one of the things, I mean, they're talking about it again. They're talking about NXT Mexico. They're talking about NXT Japan. And, like, they were trying to buy Japanese companies the last time. This shit did not work out in the UK. And I am very nervous that, like, this guy, they've got the money to do it, that they're going to come here. And, I'm going to sit back, and if they end up ruining Puroresu, I'm going to be like, was it worth it? Was it worth it to get one takeover match with, what did we get out of it? What did we get? We got Liger in New York on a takeover. We got Kenta working an anniversary show with Marufuji. And you got Nakamura working, Budokan Hall against Great Muta. Was that worth it? To prostitute Ricky Dozon's legacy.
Oh, man. Well, that's our preview of Battle Autumn in Osaka.
What a way to end the preview.
We did have some questions here from MJSPR. It says, is there a single compelling story involving a title being told right now in Shinihon?
He said, why is every title picture an absolute disaster? What do you guys do to get us back to the pre-2020 glory days? So, I mean, he's saying, like, all these title pictures are just a complete mess right now, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we mentioned, the U.S. title picture, they're wasn't a lot of build to this match. I mean, the build was this is a rematch, and I think what they've been doing with Ospreay in the U.S. title has helped that title, and I think an Ospreay-Naito match is compelling. Second time ever. Junior tag title match, I like what's going on there with United Empire and LIJ. Also, the Never title, that's a situation's a hot mess. We've talked about that. I mean, Okada, Jay White, I know a lot of people are not as into it, but I mean, that's a big program, history, rivalry. Okada hasn't beaten Jay White in the Dome yet. I feel like there's a good story there. Junior title's kind of meh with the four-way.
See, I think the question is it compelling or is it just not hot? You know?
Yeah.
Because the stories are, not all of them, obviously, but some of the stories are logical and well booked and well laid out and make sense. They're just not hot right now, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that might change by the time we get to January 4th. Like, we're gearing up for Tokyo Dome season. But I feel like the TV title and the women's title that are coming are both pretty interesting, especially, I mean, obviously that's different because they're new and inaugural. But I would say the strong titles right now, let's put that aside. I'd say the Never title and the junior title are both kind of like blah right now. But like you said, I think the junior tag team titles they're doing a good job with. I think the world title, you know, there could be more exciting things going on with it, but to say that it's not compelling, I don't know. That might be a little bit of a stretch because, you know, I feel like they've got two of the top stars going for the top prize on the top stage. It just makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then the U.S. title, yeah, it's been fucked all year, but they're doing their best to repair it, and they've got two guys that went out there and had a incredible match during. I don't know. I don't feel like that one's bad at all.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good scenario there of Naito and Ospreay.
And I think we got time. I think we got time to get stuff on course as far as like get things back on, you know, to pre-2020 glory days. I do think that the company is doing a lot of the things that need to be done. You know, and this isn't some cap talk just because we like the brand, but like they're bringing guys back from excursions. They're speeding up the progression of a lot of those guys. They're working with outside companies, both domestically and abroad. They've been having all sorts of new types of programs and ways of doing things, like this 15-minute title, like the women's stuff, different things to like bring different sets of eyes and audiences to New Japan. They're allowing a lot of the dads to go out on excursion, which is creating new space for some of the younger guys to get more, you know, experience and ring time. And they're going back to one night of the Dome, not convoluting it, and having it be a showcase of the top stars. And then we're going to get New Year's Dash. Those are all the things that we loved about this company in the past. And, you know, for me, it's hard to complain about things when everything is really moving in a positive direction, even though it's maybe not as fast as a lot of people want it to be.
Yeah, and we talked about this in the past, but the pipeline too of young guys that are coming. I mean, the U.S. pipeline with the L.A. dojo. You look at who's on excursion right now, the Tamahashi stuff and that dojo that's going on right now. And also people in the Noge dojo. Like, there's so much talent that's in the pipeline. Then you look at guys who are on New Japan Strong, the AEW partnership. There's so much going where they can bring people in, get some fresh matchups, some fresh programs.
I'd make some changes about what they're doing in the U.S. for sure, but overall, I think things are moving in a very positive direction currently.
Well, speaking of things in the U.S., that's a good segue to jump into the two pay-per-view events that happened last week. Let's start with the night before Rumbl on 44th Street. A Halloween special is aired on Fight TV October 27th. First, I gotta say, Josh, what were your overall thoughts on the production, look, and feel of both this show and the next night's show, the Rumbl on 44th Street?
I thought they were very good, actually, for the most part. There's a couple small things that I'm not going to say nitpick, because I think that they weren't things that brought down the enjoyment overall of the show, but they were things that really do make a big difference. But as far as like video quality, the video production, the lighting, it all seemed like, I don't want to say major league, because this didn't come off like major league. This came off like major league indie. Essentially, what most of these US New Japan shows are top of the line indie shows with big stars involved. They're not pay-per-view quality shows in the sense of like competing, like when you put them in the same level of a WWE or an AEW or even a major New Japan show. They're not the same level as those PLEs or pay-per-views, but when you compare them to what are probably closer contemporaries in like PWG, GCW, Impact, that sort of thing, they're pretty comparable. So, and considering all the snafus they've had in the past, there were very few hiccups, if any at all. The things I did not like, even though I thought the lighting was good so that you could see the ring and everything, you could not see the audience at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that, and these weren't big shows, but there was like, at least for the second night, for sure, there was just slightly over 1,000 people there. The way that the audio and the lighting was, you wouldn't be able to tell if it was 50 people or 1,050 people, because it just didn't look like it at all. It was very, very, very dark. The other thing, too, is that New Japan has this tendency on the America shows, especially with Strong and stuff, where they keep the hard cam facing the entrance, which I get why they do that, because they have the displays and everything, and Impact does it. Ring of Honor used to do it. But I don't know. As a fan, I'd rather see the audience, and not seeing the audience makes it feel even smaller time than it actually even was. They did a pretty good house, not a great house, but they did a strong number in New York, and you just couldn't tell at all.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the production was okay. Like you said, honestly, I felt like I was watching an FIP show with just the look of the show and the quality of the production. I mean, there were some audio issues. Sometimes the crowd would be super hot. Sometimes the crowd would be down just based on the audio volume. Sometimes,
the backstage segments were super low.
Yeah, and then sometimes Ian Riccaboni would be like yelling in your ear because he was turned up so loud. And like you mentioned, it was just very dark, not a ton of lights. Didn't really feel like a big production. And they made a big deal about New Japan coming back to New York. Last time they were there, 2019, Madison Square Garden. Like, that was a big deal. Great production, sold out. Super big house. Me and you were there in person. What a great show that was. Then you compare that to like, this is supposed to be the big homecoming of New Japan back in New York, and they're in this little tiny building, which we've already talked about, 1,000 fans, and then it's super dark, doesn't look like a big time production. Like you said, it looks like we're watching Defy or GCW or MLW, some, lower rent promotion. And
I do think, I would say this, I think that the production level is lower than, say, Impact and Ring of Honor was, but higher than the rest of those companies.
Yeah.
It's like the middle ground between those two, at least on this, not always, but on these shows, these two in particular, I feel like it was slightly above like a Defy or an FIP or an Evolve, but definitely lower than an Impact or an ROH.
Yeah. So the first night, the night before October,
I will say this. I didn't think I was going to like this first night show with it being Mystery Vortex and everything, but something a lot of people listening probably don't know about me. Big time horror fan. Halloween, love it. Here's how big of a fan I am. I've got a running catalog list of every single horror movie I've ever watched, ranked by year. So anytime you mix wrestling with Halloween / horror, I'm always going, not like the goofy stuff, not like the swamp fight in WWE, but like, Halloween Havoc, shit like this. It works for me. I like this sort of stuff. And then like there were so many like cool surprises of people I didn't expect to see on the show. Like this was a fun night.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, a mystery Vortex card. None of the matches were announced. Only we knew that people who were on the poster would be in action. There would be a lot of other surprises. So show opened up. We had Kevin Knight in the DKC. They defeated a reuniting Forever Hooligans, Alex Kozlov and Rocky Romero, our good friend. They had a video package that had us kind of, Rocky seeing a counselor, psychiatrist, and it ended up being Alex Kozlov and his whole kind of video thing to introduce that, Forever Hooligans are back together.
I liked that. It was like kind of scary. It was good.
Yeah, kind of like this freaky. You get like multiple Kozlovs like talking to Rocky at one point, and all to reintroduce, Forever Hooligans back together. They're teaming first time, since 2015. Alex Kozlov's first like straight up tag match since like 2015.
He looked good. He looked really good.
Yeah, I know. I think he got knee injuries. I think it's kind of slowed him down. But yeah, he looked real good, looking shape. Him and Rocky had a lot of their same, Forever Hooligans double team moves that looked pretty good. Also, there's a lot of still some miscommunication. Just those guys are kind of arguing with each other. They're going for like the forever like drop kick thing, and Rocky was continue to bounce the ropes, and Kozlov got impatient and hit him with a atomic drop, and they're arguing back and forth. And I think also their mistiming and arguments led to Kevin Knight and the DKC getting the win here.
Yeah, I thought this was pretty fun. I thought it made a lot of sense considering the Young Lion team were headed into a title shot the next night, plus Kozlov coming off this long layoff, and the infrequency of tagging with Rocky for years and years. They haven't tagged, so just it kind of made sense. Very, very fun and very surprising to see Forever Hooligans. Didn't expect that at all.
Yeah. Then following that non-title match, we had the strong openweight champion, Mr. No Days Off, Fred Rosser, defeating Crowbar. Yes, Crowbar from WCW Thunder took on Fred Rosser.
This was so cool just to see Crowbar there. Both these guys, New Jersey natives. Crowbar's worked for literally every major company on earth except probably New Japan. So to see him work in New Japan ring against a contemporary guy like Fred Rosser was really cool. Plus, Fred Rosser, the story going into this match was that he had an open challenge for the next night for the strong title, and nobody really knew who the challenger was going to be. Could it be Crowbar? Could it be, Crowbar trying to soften him up to prep him for a title challenge the next night, or something of that ilk? And we weren't really sure who it was going to be, but Crowbar definitely didn't go out there and set the world on fire, but just seeing him, in the New Japan ring on a fun night like this was pretty cool and entertaining, and Fred Rosser beat him as he should.
Yeah. Then after the match, Rosser was cutting a promo, talking about how much he loves New Japan, asking who's next. Then out comes Jonathan Gresham to answer the challenge, cuts a promo and responds. One thing I gotta say about Rosser, we talked about this before with his post-match promos. He'll be like, who's next? Then somebody comes out and he'll be like, why are you out here? Like, bro, you just gave an open challenge. That's what he's doing out there.
There's so many things I do like about Fred Rosser, but there are certain things about like that just don't make sense. Like, he's like, how dare you come out and tell, bro, you have an open challenge, my guy. Like, what are you talking about? You said I invite any one of you to come out here, and then he's like, the hell are you doing in my ring? Oh, you want my belt?
Disrespect.
You disrespect the champion?
Like, what are you doing, man? Have you never watched New Japan? Like, people just come out, even if you didn't say open challenge, like, people come out and challenge. Like, come on, man.
Another thing, too, is, like, in the middle, he's like, I'm going to tell you the same thing I told the last challenger. After you face me, you're going to leave with two boots on. The two boots on your feet. What? And the boot I put up your ass. Like, bro, what you said just does not make sense at all. Like, I'm not trying to judge you.
Yeah.
The fuck does that mean? Bro, thank God he wasn't in there with, like, CM Punk or like, Eddie Kingston or MJF or John Moxley, because they would tear him to shreds, bro.
Yeah.
You're like, the fuck you talk about boots for, dog? You can give me a title shot or not? Like,
oh, man.
And then Jonathan Gresham has the audacity to cut this, anime ass fucking. he's like, you're gonna have to face the best technical wrestler in the world, which is me. And he like does this like anime pose. I'm like, bro, like why are you watching My Hero Academia? Like,
oh my gosh.
Go watch a Ric Flair promo. I don't know, man. Watch some Roddy Piper. Like, what are you doing?
Oh my gosh. So yeah,
he had glasses on and he took them off and he like swung his like jacket back and he looked up like into the lights. Like, what where are you looking? What are you doing?
Yeah, this whole segment just, oh my gosh.
And then you know what? I'm not opposed to Jonathan Gresham. I'm not a Jonathan Gresham hater. I know there's a lot of hate that's come his way recently, probably a lot of it deservedly, to some extent, but he's just always seemed like a guy that fits in the New Japan environment, and he's always done really well here. And maybe he didn't fit in AEW, but I do think he fits in New Japan really well. But this whole thing was weird.
Yeah. So following that, we had Aussie Open, Kyle Fletcher, Mark Davis. They defeated the SAT, Joel Maximo and Jose Maximo. The Maximos, innovators with the Spanish Fly, like super flippy dude tag team in the 2000s. A very innovative team from the Northeast. A lot of the spots you see today, these guys kind of invented and did all throughout the Indies. So it's kind of a fun matchup, short matchup here against Aussie Open.
I've never seen a Maximo match ever before. So I know it's like kind of sacrilegious to say because of how influential they are. And I know they're like around during the early days of ROH, but like I was kind of cherry picking that shit back. It's kind of the same way with Noah. Like when in the early 2000s, I would watch what Noah and ROH I could even get my hands on if I was even able to. So it's not like I was always that aware of a lot of these. I knew the names, but I never saw the SAT back in the day,
I saw them in the original MLW run. I think that was like in 2004. The first time the company was running, I saw them. They were one of the top teams in that promotion.
But, that's a pretty cool surprise. They're natives to that area, New York natives, I believe, or, definitely from the Northeast. And seeing them in Aussie Open was like kind of a cool thing. And I would be opposed to them coming back and, maybe working strong or something like that. I thought they still look good.
Yeah, look good. They came out with a bunch of guys in monkey suits called they're Spot Monkeys. That was pretty funny. So yeah, fun matchup here with Aussie Open, and yeah,
they were good promos.
Yes, yeah, there was a pre-match like vignette introducing them. That was really good.
Yeah, I thought the pre-match promo like sold me on them. I'm like, all right, these dudes are gonna show up and show these dudes why they're actually the best. I'm all about that. Let's do this.
Following that, we had a 4-way match with Speedball Mike Bailey defeating Mascarada, Mighty Monte, and Smiley.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with Mighty Monte and Smiley, but, they seem to be regulars of the House of Glory promotion, which are somewhat partnering with New Japan when they come to New York. But I definitely know Mike Bailey and I know Mascarada. I thought this match was fun for what it was. I saw some people really hyping it. I saw some people hating on it. I'm kind of in the middle. It was sort of like your indie flippy do showcase 4-way match. There was definitely some. You know what? I did not like the finish. The finish was cool. They had a finish where like Dorada got isolated and was on the outside and kind of taken out of the equation. And so it kind of broke down to Bailey, Mighty Monte, and Smiley. And at the very end, Monte and Smiley were trying to set up for some sort of move, and they were just in position for a long time. And then Mike Bailey did his, come off the top rope and hit him with the double knees.
Mm-hmm.
But the amount, which was cool, but the amount of time that you always hear that criticism of like this style of wrestling where guys do things that don't make sense and they're standing in place for too long, anticipating a move that's coming. And some of that criticism is not valid. But when it's like this, it's absolutely valid. These guys just stood there and stood there and stood there and stood there. And then he did his cool shit. It's like, find a way to do the cool shit, but like do it organically. Like I did not like the finish. But overall, the match was very fast paced, very, very fun. Everybody was doing wild stuff. Very fun.
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought the match was very fun. Enjoyed it. Lots of cool flips. Big fan of Speedball, Mike Bailey. So yeah, I hope that we get some more New Japan dates on him the remainder of this year and going into next year. But yeah, like you mentioned, fun kind of flippy X Division style indie cluster 4-way match. So then following that, we had Minoru Suzuki taking on Hot Sauce Tracy Williams. I think this is the first time Tracy Williams has been on a New Japan of America show. Maybe he's done some Strong before. But a big opportunity here for Suzuki. This was a good match. I mean, to me, this was kind of the typical Suzuki US match formula. Doing the faces, doing the chops and the strikes, and just kind of going through the motions of a US Suzuki match. I mean, Hot Sauce I thought he tried really hard, but I feel like Suzuki was just kind of doing his stick here.
I don't have much to add to that because you took the words right out of my mouth. I could elaborate on that more and say the exact same things that you said, but literally you put it perfectly. This was exactly that. It was a US Suzuki indie match to the T, and it was very formulaic. It was still good. And I thought Tracy Williams looked good, and I'm glad to see him back coming off of a long layoff from what they thought was a career-threatening injury.
From that car accident, yeah.
So I'm glad to see him back, and he's a guy I'd like to see in Strong some more, maybe even, get some dates. But, you can't complain too much about those types of Suzuki matches, but you can't hype them up too much either because they are what they are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for the live audience, they're great. They're very fun. They're very entertaining, but they're just not notable.
Right. I mean, if it's your first time seeing Suzuki, you're probably going to love it in person. But, I mean, if it's like you've seen him live, you've seen him wrestle for so long, like, you know the game plan.
Well, the issue is that people see them on the smaller stages, whether it's a GCW or Glory Pro or whatever, AAW, and they're like, man, Suzuki versus whoever was, Warhorse or whoever was really cool. And then you seek it out and you're like, this isn't even as good as what this is just the same match I've seen him do a million times.
Yeah. So then following that, we had Shingo Takagi defeating Jake Something, 14 minutes, 17 seconds. Again, another really good match. I thought the match was kind of slow in the first half and then really picked up on the second half. Really hard hitting. Jake Something, big Hoss guy, and so I thought he looked good there with Shingo, the closing stretch, and Shingo gets the big win here.
Yeah, I thought Shingo was a little bit more motivated here in this singles match than maybe say like Suzuki was in the match prior, but they were both very good matches. Again, cool to see Jake Something be the surprise opponent, and for a lot of people, this is probably the match of the night. Maybe for me too, I don't know. But it was very good. They went sub 15 minutes and went out there and they told a great story, had a very good match. Jake Something, there's some, I know I've said this before, but he has something. I like him for whatever reason. I can't really put my finger on it. Maybe it's because he's kind of a throwback to the big muscle guys, that I grew up on. But like he's got a look and not like in a Killer Cross way where like he's got a look but he can't work. Like he has a look and he can work. He's not the greatest worker, but he's not someone that totally doesn't fit in. And I thought the match with Shingo here was pretty good.
Yeah, Jake's something I've always been impressed anytime I've seen him. I believe he's left Impact, so it'd be cool if we get him more on New Japan Strong. But yeah, he's always fun to watch and enjoy this matchup here with Shingo. So then moving on from that, the main event of the show, the Josh Smith special elimination match. So we had the team of Kazuchika.
But before you get into it, did you watch this week's recommended match of the week?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so we'll talk about that later, but you can see why that's the type of match that I like and not this type of match. This is not the Josh Smith special. The Josh Smith special is like 30 years old.
So yeah, elimination matchup here. We had Kazuchika Okada, Yo, Amazing Red, Eddie Kingston, Homicide, and Jon Moxley all teaming up together, and they defeated the team of El Phantasmo, Jay White, Rock Hard Juice Robinson, Team Filthies, Jarrell Nelson, Royce Isaacs, and Filthy Tom Lawler, 29 minutes and 14 seconds. So big, multi-man matchup here. Lots of stars here. We had Team Filthy, rocking the evil nun demon costumes.
Were you offended?
I mean, it is what it is. I mean, wrestling has done so much to, be blasphemous and do stuff like that. So to me, I was just kind of like, whatever it is. I know, like, Filthy loved, like, the Sister Act thing, and he's kind of doing, like, the evil nun thing. So I was like, it is what it is.
Well, at first, like, I didn't really care about that too much. But then, like, there was a part in the match where, like, Jarrell Nelson was, like, praying for the crowd. Which, in a way, like, it's not cool because it is kind of blasphemous. But it was, like, from a heat standpoint, kind of silly because he's like, God, please smite these.
Yeah.
It's so stupid. But, I could see how people might not, appreciate that or take that the right way. I was kind of looking at that a little bit sideways.
Yeah. But, I mean, again, it's pro wrestling, and I know stuff like that's going to happen. And like you said, it kind of worked. It was kind of like a goofy comedy heat, but it was kind of treading that line of like, lightning bolt's going to come hit this ring.
you notice that Chaos was Okada and Yo and not Amazing Red. No longer, apparently. I don't know how, because he never was ousted, but he was a Chaos member, but I guess not. Well, his connection to Chaos was Ospreay.
Right.
Ospreay left. So maybe when Ospreay left, all of his dudes got ousted too. But yeah, this was very star-studded, and that was like, okay, this on paper, or at least from like a match quality standpoint, wasn't the match of the night. But because of the crowd reactions, it for me, this was the match of the night. There was no match on this evening that really just stood out. It was like, oh, you got to check this out. I mean, I could see someone really loving the 4-way with all the high flying, or the Jake something versus Shingo match. But to me, I liked the elimination match the most just because it was fun, and the drama of having like all the surprises, Amazing Red and Jon Moxley, and all that was really, really cool. And then they went a long time, 29 minutes and 14 seconds. The only thing is, nobody really had their working boots on. Like, it didn't feel at any point like these guys were taking this match seriously at all. Like, it was just kind of like your house show special. Like, they just went out there, went through the number, paint by numbers. It wasn't like anyone really stood out and had an amazing performance, but it was fun, and the crowd was really into it.
Yeah, totally agree with you there. So the eliminations, Isaacs and Nelson eliminating Yo, Amazing Red, then eliminated Nelson, then Isaacs eliminated Amazing Red, then Homicide eliminated Royce Isaacs, Filthy Tom eliminated Homicide, then you had Moxley eliminating Phantasmo, Lawler, Then Jay White eliminated Okada. John Moxley eliminates Juice Robinson, and you're down to Moxley and Kingston and just Jay White. And Moxley and Kingston eliminate Jay White. So your sole survivors, the AEW guys, John Moxley and Eddie Kingston.
The coolest part at the end was just having John Moxley and Jay White, who were held off most of the match, finally standing toe-to-toe, champion versus champion. Not something I really expected to see that evening, which was pretty fun. But I forgot Kingston was still in there. And then when you realize, like, oh, shit, it's the two of them against Jay White, like, it was pretty much a done deal. But at the same time, they had to protect Jay White. They could have easily pinned him. But, like, Kingston was like, let's throw this motherfucker over the ropes.
Yeah.
And then they got rid of him that way. So they still like quasi protect him, but he definitely like did a job.
Yeah. So a question here from Hawaiian Punch VV says a surprise card show seemed like a fun show with a bunch of surprises. With Crowbar making an appearance, which former WCW wrestler is next? Above average Mike Sanders? Former Rocky Romero tag team partner Alex Kozlov made his return. Which tag team partner is next? Ricky Reyes? After they dropped the Black Tiger thing? After the SAT, which early 2000s indie tag team is next?
Yeah, what happened to Black Tiger Mask? He just disappeared. They never paid that off in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, they probably realized what horrible shape he was in and was just not delivering, and they probably were like, you know what, we're just going to scrap this.
Yeah, I'm going to just treat these questions as being rhetorical, although I like the suggestions, like above average Mike Sanders. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have the capacity to delve into early 2000s indie tag team wrestling and WCW and Rocky Romero's long history of tag team.
All right, let's move on to Rumbl on 44th Street, which was the following evening, October 28th. We had a pre-show match. We had Kylie Ray and Tiara James defeating the Cosmic Angels team of Mina Shirakawa and Waka Tsukiyama.
Yeah, I saw this. I didn't think it was very good, to be honest with you. And I wanted it to be good, but it just kind of wasn't. I would say if I was someone on the fence about buying the pay-per-view and this was the pre-show and I was tuning in, this would not in any way compel me to purchase the pay-per-view.
Yeah, and that's usually the job of the pre-show matches, to make you want to stick around for the rest of the show. And yeah, this was not the best offering here. Yeah.
Plus, like, now I will say this, like, I like Mina. I don't know much about her, but I like Mina. But yeah, this didn't feel like for all of the hype about Stardom being showcased on this pay-per-view, this didn't feel like a really good showcase of Stardom talent in this particular match. So
yeah. So then the main card opened up with the House of Tortures, Sho and Yujiro Takahashi defeating the Chaos team of Rocky Romero and Yo. 7 minutes, 42 seconds. Fine matchup. I think the big thing here was what happened post-match. After the match, House of Torture continuing to attack Rocky and Yo. And then out comes Lio Rush to make the save. And then post-match promo, we find out that Yo made the call to Lio Rush. They're throwing up Roppongi 3K signs, and Lio Rush accepts being Yo's partner for the Super Junior Tag League. So we know one of the teams now, a new team. People are calling them Leo. What are your thoughts on Lio Rush coming out here and Leo and Yo teaming up?
Jeremy, I could not give a single fuck about Lio Rush coming back to New Japan. And let me tell you why. Because I can't remember how many times he has left and returned at this point in just the past like 2 years, 3 years altogether. Literally, when this was on the screen, my girlfriend was like, he's back again? Like, how many times has this dude left and come back? She's like, that should be a bit. And I was like, I can't turn that into a bit because it would require me to go look. And I don't really know which companies do or don't count. What I do know is he keeps leaving and he keeps coming back, but not having great matches all along the way. So there's nothing for me right now at this point to really get excited about. I know people have been wanting for a long time for Lio Rush to come to Japan. In theory, that sounds so cool, but we had him on Strong, and then he left, and then he got hurt, and then he was in AW, and then he wasn't there, and then he was in GCW, but then he retired, but then he didn't retire, and then he said he was going to retire, and then he didn't retire, and then he came back.
Got hurt again.
He got hurt again. He was talking about going back to NXT. You know, there was a time where I thought this guy, when I saw him in ROH, I was like, he is so special, and he is going to be one of the greatest talents of his generation, and it just hasn't happened. And I would love for it to happen. I would love for him to come to Japan and turn everything around and make me care again. That's your job, Lio Rush. Make us care, because right now I don't give a fuck. And you picked the worst partner. You picked Yo. Oh my God. How am I supposed to care about you when you team with Yo?
Yeah. I mean, I'm excited for just a fresh team, fresh faces in that junior tag division, that junior tag league. But yeah, he's gonna have to make us care. He's gonna have to show up to Japan and get over and have some good matches
and work.
Yeah. So we'll
and
see.
Be consistent.
Yeah, that's the main thing. Consistency. I mean, guy has all talent in the world, super talented. Great athlete. But yeah, the consistency is missing there. We have a question from Dark Soldier. Says, if Rocky Romero ever gets a junior title match, will you guys be there to support him? He is a friend of the show.
I don't know. I can't commit to that because, if it's like in, some part of Japan that I don't know about it in time and I don't have the money to get there, but, how am I supposed to commit to that? But if I could, would I? Sure.
Yes. Worst case scenario, we'll be there in spirit. He also says, Lio Rush is back, ... again. When will his next retirement be?
Yeah, I've said my comments about it. I don't want to bury the guy any further.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully he sticks around a little bit longer here, but yeah, I mean, his reputation precedes him, and so, like you mentioned, it's kind of difficult to get excited based off of that. So next matchup was for the Strong Openweight Tag Team titles. The champions, Aussie Open, defended against the Motor City Machine Guns and Kevin Knight in the DKC. And we have new Strong Openweight Tag Team champions, the Motor City Machine Guns. Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin win this three-way match to become the second and new Strong Openweight Tag Team champions.
I hope someone took my advice last week, put some money on this like I said to do.
Yeah, you had the vision on that last week. You called it. This was a really fun, kind of a sprint tag team match with all three of these teams. High flying, high pace, fun action. Machine Guns getting the win over the Young Lion team there. So Aussie Open drops the belt without getting pinned, which could leave the door open for a rematch in the future. And now we have this established team of the Motor City Machine Guns carrying the Strong Openweight Tag Team titles.
Tiger Hattori loves the Motor City Machine Guns.
Yes. He was so excited to give them the belts.
He was so excited. It was fine. It was fun. It was exactly what I said it was going to be last week. And I fully expect big things for Aussie Open in Japan moving forward. I think that's the only reason they did this.
Yeah. Following that, we had the return of Alex Coughlin, the android. He made his way to the ring, issued a challenge to JR Kratos, who was not there.
I love it. He's still on this Kratos kick. Like, it's great.
And then he says that he will be in action during the World Tag League Tour. So I don't know if
that makes me think that Kratos is going to be in World Tag League.
Maybe. So, yeah, I'm not sure if he was saying, like, he's in the tag league or he's just going to be on, like, the undercard of the tour. So I guess it depends, what's happening there. So we'll see.
I don't know, but I think JR Kratos is a guy that needs to tour Japan. I wouldn't be surprised if him and Filthy or him and someone else, like, I don't know who else, but
Limelight?
Maybe, but Limelight seems too small to do World Tag League.
That's true. That's right. That's a heavyweight tournament.
I think it would need to be Filthy Tom Lawler.
Yeah, probably Filthy. That makes more sense, yeah.
But it could be someone else. I don't know. But anyways, yeah, I would love for both those guys to be on the tour together.
So then following that, we had the Strong Openweight title on the line. And
also, Alex Coughlin has a new shirt, and it's modeled after the Thing poster, and John Carpenter's the Thing, and it's so cool. I want to get one. It's great.
Yeah, it was a pretty dope looking shirt. So Strong Openweight title match, we had Fred Rosser successfully defending the title against Jonathan Gresham, 14 minutes, 37 seconds.
Match was fine. In fact, I thought it was very good, but I was just nervous that Jonathan Gresham was going to beat him. Not because I don't like Jonathan Gresham, but because this was the most plausible that any challenger has felt to Jonathan or to Fred Rosser since he won the title. And I felt like it kind of was coming out of nowhere. Like, I don't like the idea of a surprise opponent being the guy that wins the title. I'd rather it be something a little more established and long lasting.
Yeah.
So from that aspect, I was kind of dreading the match a little bit, but I was glad to see Fred Rosser retain. Wouldn't be opposed to Gresham holding that belt in the future or even getting a rematch at some point. But match was pretty good. It wasn't great, but it was, for the time they were given, it was pretty good.
Yeah, I felt like same thoughts here. I thought it was a very good matchup. Thought Rosser looked good there with Gresham. And yeah, I think, like mentioned earlier, I think Gresham's a guy who fits into New Japan and could be an asset, especially to New Japan Strong.
Also, 2 African-American wrestlers wrestling for a title, second time in recent memory that's happened, and it's becoming less and less of a rare occurrence, which is a good thing.
Definitely. Following that, we had an announcement that New Japan is going to be returning to San Jose for Battle in the Valley on February 18th. Then we moved into a 6-man tag match. We had Homicide, Shota Umino, and Wheeler Utah defeating the Team Filthy team of Jarrell Nelson, Royce Isaacs, and Filthy Tom Lawler.
This was okay. It's just continuing the ongoing storyline between Homicide and Tom Lawler.
Yeah, not a whole ton to add there. Yeah, continuing that storyline. Yeah, and also kind of like this, Friends of Mox kind of thing against Team Filthy. We have a question from the Dark Soldier. He says, "We know Mox is Shooter's dad. Is Homicide like Eddie, the cool uncle to Shooter Umino?"
I guess. I mean, like, I'm just not that into it. Like,
the whole family thing.
Well, it sort of like, to me, feels like an infantile. I don't know what the word is, but like
fan fiction kind of.
Well, no, like it sort of like makes these younger talents like children. Like it infantilizes them. Is that what it's called? It's like, these are grown-ass men. These are not people's sons. Like, I get it. It's cool. You guys want to, like, make your... and I'm not saying this to the question asker, but, like, I see people, they want to make their, like, quasi-anime, funny comic strips with, with Yuta Wheeler and with Shota Umino and Mox and the BCC and everything. I get it. It is kind of topical and funny. But at the end of the day, these guys aren't going to get over by being people's sons. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just not, I'm not into the QT wrestler shit.
I did think that Umino looked really good in this match. Show a lot of confidence. I think he's been getting in better shape. I think he's getting to the point now where, like, I'm excited to see him back in Japan. I think he's ready to be back in the mix there.
You know what that shit reminds me of? When people talk about, Kota Ibushi, like, he's not a grown-ass man who's capable of doing things.
Yeah.
Like, I do know, I know he got lost a couple times, and that's funny, but also, like, he got lost in foreign countries where he doesn't speak the language. But, like, that's a huge part of it. But people are like, oh, he's so dumb. He's just this cute little guy. And it's like, nah, bro. Like, he's a man. Like, he's a grown-ass man. And people talk about him like he's this, like, little kid, you know?
Yeah. Moving on to the next match, we had Minoru Suzuki defeating a returning Wild Rhino Clark Connors, who came out with Ken Shamrock in his corner. So, a lot of Pancrase history there with Suzuki and Shamrock, and what better guy to have you in your corner than Ken Shamrock to face off against Minoru Suzuki. Again, I thought this match was better than the hot sauce match the previous night. Still kind of the Suzuki US formula, but I did think that Clark worked really hard, and he got Suzuki's respect at the end of the match up here. So it was good showing for the Wild Rhino.
Yeah, I wouldn't quite put this in, and not to say that you did, but I wouldn't quite put this in that same category as the hot sauce match, just because it did, to me, feel like Suzuki was a lot more motivated.
Yeah, definitely seemed like he was trying more in this match.
And I feel like he gave a lot more and did some more creative things with Clark Connors, but not too far off. But then again, Suzuki's getting old, and it's hard to, it's been a while since we've seen him in a very competitive environment in New Japan where he was working at the top of the card. So hard to say right now if he's still capable of doing what he was doing 2 or 3 years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think right now he's just being super smart worker, doing what people want, the strikes, the faces, the pile driver, and taking very little bumps as possible.
But I love seeing Clark Connors back. I loved the inclusion of Ken Shamrock, and just kind of injecting that into the whole story was, if you know me and my history of like wrestling fandom, I fucking ate that up. I love that stuff. And there's very few times ever in the history of New Japan where at the end of a match, win or loss, Minoru Suzuki paid any sort of respect to any competitor ever. So it was kind of a big deal that he gave that sign of respect to Clark Connors, even though he beat Clark Connors.
Yeah, even though he called him a young boy.
He did call him a young boy, but he didn't give him the Karrion Kross treatment. He treated him like he was a serious threat. And I thought this match, for many people, is probably the match of the night, if not the second best match of the night.
Yeah, it's definitely a candidate. So then following that, we had the Stardom SWA Undisputed World Women's title match. As a champion, Mayu Iwatani defended the title against AEW's Kylan King.
This, I did not like the backstage promo leading into this. It just, there's a lot going on there for everyone involved that they kind of need to clean that stuff up. But I love the idea of having backstage promos leading into the matches, even if it's like they don't do that in Japan. Maybe if they did just do that on the Western shows, that's pretty cool. I like that. So I hope they do continue to do them, but they need to clean it up. The audio needs to be better. The interviewer needs to be a little bit more precise. Things just need to flow better. But the match was good. I liked the match a lot. So I did have that criticism about Women's Showcase and the opening preview match not being great, but the Mayu Kylan King match was very good. It wasn't like a blowaway or anything like that, but for a sub 12-minute match, I felt like they went out there and told a good story. There was definitely some mistiming cues, some miscommunications, and I think that's somewhat to be expected when you have workers who are working the indies in America primarily, locking it up with Joshi wrestlers who rarely work Western style workers, and especially not doing it in Japan, but doing it over here. That's always going to be a little bit awkward and take some getting used to. But I thought that they told a compelling story. I thought that they had a good hard hitting match, and the crowd seemed into it, and the right person went over. I thought it was very good.
Yeah, very good match. I was like 3.5 on the match, which was very good for the time what they had. I thought Kylan King looked pretty good, and she was hanging with Mayu. I think Kylan is somebody who could benefit greatly from doing a couple tours on Stardom, get some more experience there, kind of keep helping her improve.
She looks like a monster compared to Mayu Iwatani, which just the whole time I was watching it, I was thinking, we've already kind of in the past, not on this show, but just amongst ourselves talking, I think they have something with Kylan King. I think she's got a great look, physical presence, and I think she's a good talent. I think if they send her to Japan, she will be money. Like, because she's huge compared to those girls, and she's just very imposing. And I think that could help her game a lot.
Yeah.
And I think you can make money with her there.
Yeah, unique look. Yeah, she would stand out big time, and she's a good worker and continues to improve. I mean, we saw her from her debut back in like 2017 or 2018 at a local indie show here in Florida.
Think that was her I don't think that was her debut. I think that was just like they did a gimmick where she was the girl in the crowd and got called out, but I think she was already working.
Yeah,
she was still early in her career at the time.
Yeah. So yeah, it's good to see how much she's improved, and always fun seeing Mayu in action. And also a little preview, we're going to see Mayu at historic crossover facing off against Kairi for the IWGP Women's title. So after that, semi-main event of the evening, we had the New York Street Fight for the KOPW 2022 trophy, as the Dragon Shingo Takagi successfully defend the trophy against the headbanger El Phantasmo in 20 minutes and 59 seconds. And just an absolutely wild and crazy street fight. All the plunder, all the tables, all the chairs, ladders, crazy spots. ELP almost killing himself, jumping off this huge ladder on a Shingo through a table. Really crazy matchup.
I thought this was so much fun. I loved that both guys came out in street fight gear and attire, and they had a very good match, and they didn't do the shit that I hate in these street fights where they come out and they go into the ring and they just start littering the ring with a bunch of weapons for absolutely no reason, or set shit up. So like everything they did in the match was very organic, kind of the Bryan Danielson theory of hardcore wrestling. Like they introduced the weapons organically into the match as they continued the match, and it was just really good. It was very hard hitting, very fun, wild brawl. They went like 20 minutes, and this felt like a great fitting conclusion for the Shingo ELP daddy drama ongoing KOPW thing. And I don't know if it's going to continue past this, but this feels like if it is the end, it's a great fitting conclusion. I mean, if you think about it, Shingo's a former world champion, and ELP is a guy that was, working in the juniors not too long ago. So it makes sense that ELP should be the guy that takes the loss here. But they did a lot to kind of establish him as like a serious player at heavyweight throughout the course of this program. So kind of a late contender for, feud of the year, candidacy for our awards.
Definitely. Yeah. We got tons of daddy Shingo chants throughout the match. So yeah, really fun match, like you mentioned. Really cool spots too, and very just kind of organic, innovative ways to kind of get to the weapon spots and use the weapons. And these guys took some crazy bumps. Like I mentioned, that big Thunder Kiss splash off the top of the ladder, the very tip top of the ladder through the table. That was dope. Shingo did a Death Valley driver off the top rope to ELP through a table. So a lot of crazy spots to the end there. I think it was Last of the Dragon on 2 chairs, and Shingo got the big win.
And even just the idea of seeing Shingo work in this type of environment showed his versatility, as well as, I mean, we've heard the reports that ELP's done a lot of stuff like this in the past. I've never seen it, but both guys worked really well in this environment. Very fun match for many people, probably match of the night.
Yeah. And then the main event of the evening, special tag team match, we had Switchblade Jay White and Rock Hard Juice Robinson defeating Eddie Kingston and Kazuchika Okada 20 minutes and 15 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, for a showcase preview tag team match involving, the champion and the title challenger, I thought that this was better than expected. It had a good energy. I think the fans were not only into them, but really into Juice, as well as mostly Kingston. Eddie's a star, especially in New York, and very good flow to the match, good pace, good energy. And you never really were sure who was going to pick up the win here, especially since Juice was on the opposite side. And it seemed like he could easily be the pin eater, but so could Eddie. So that was kind of always going to be the issue there. And I feel like the mind games from Jay White leading into this match, the war of words with him and Eddie, were kind of what got under his skin and kind of what were his undoing for this match and why he ended up eating the Blade Runner.
Yeah, really good preview tag here. Energetic match, kind of similar energy to the previous night's main event where you have these big stars and the crowd was super into this. And yeah, like you mentioned, it seemed like Juice potentially could take the pinfall, especially, with the AEW guys getting a lot of wins. But yeah, Jay needed momentum here after being eliminated the previous night. Like you mentioned, Eddie Kingston was kind of was the undoing of him, kind of fell apart and made the team fall apart there towards the end. And Jay and Juice get the big win there. And I feel like we're going to get a Jay Kingston singles match at some point because there have been a lot of promos, and then this tag match here in the previous night's 10-man tag, it seems like they might be doing some kind of Jay Kingston match before the Dome, maybe.
Possibly. I mean, that's what it seems like it might be, and whether that's Strong or whether that's AEW or even New Japan, it's hard to say, but I think all of that's potentially on the table.
Yeah. We had a question here from UD Dojo on Twitter. Is this the least exciting Wrestle Kingdom main event in years? And if Jay loses, what's next for him? I feel like he's done everything he can in NJPW at a young age, and that he'd be huge in AEW or WWE.
It may very well be the least exciting, but then again, we've gotten away for several years now from your typical formula for Wrestle Kingdom, where we've been working with multiple nights and convoluted title pictures, scenarios, and mini tournaments, and yada. And how many years did we do that? 3 years?
Yeah, well, it started 2019.
Yeah. So 2019, 2020, 2021. So, and I understand a lot of people liked that, but it was always the conundrum that we had. We're like, how do you make money off the big match on the second? Or did they always do 2 nights? They never went to 3, right?
Well, this past year was.
Oh, that's right.
Was the third night with the New Japan versus Noah thing.
But I mean, like, think about it. They did Okada and Naito in 2020 in this really major match that was super meaningful, and they drew less the second night with that on top because nobody knew that was for sure going to be the match on the second night because it was all contingent on the first night. That's always been the flaw of that whole entire deal, which I'm glad that they tried it and they did something different, at the time, but eventually they should have done something different in the title picture as opposed to making the main event of both nights kind of, all be around mini-man tournaments or whatever. That being said, yeah, as far as like having a match announced way ahead of time and everyone knowing about it and it being like this really exciting thing, this is probably in recent memory one of the least exciting title picture builds that we've had. I'm not saying it's bad, but we are coming to the end of a cycle where we had all of these major Wrestle Kingdom matches that hadn't been done or that were being built to for years and years and years. There was like a decade, almost 12 years of that. And that kind of has all been played out. Most of those matches have already happened, and there's very few options in that way concerning the old guard. I think we're moving into a new phase at the end of this Wrestle Kingdom where we have new talent coming in. We've got new stars coming back. We've got new doors and opportunities down the line for Tokyo Dome shows to where it's not going to be repetition of things we've seen in the past. And this match actually is probably the last really big, meaningful match that could occur from that previous iteration. You know what I mean? Because we've never had these two guys in the Tokyo Dome for the title before. But as far as like sending Jay White to WWE, here's the problem. I'm all for guys going away and then coming back and then going away, because that used to be fun and that used to be exciting. That used to be how wrestling operated. The only problem is that's not how it works if you go to WWE nowadays. You go to WWE and then you stay there forever, and then they fuck you up and they fuck your character up, and then you're only big when you come back from being there because they either fired your ass or, you know, people are so happy to hope that maybe you're going to be rehabbed by leaving the company altogether. And they hoard talent for years and years and decades at a time. So it's like, I don't know. Can you imagine, like, sure, do I think he's a WWE guy in a certain sense because he's got a good look and he wrestles a slower pace and he's all about character work and he has a good promo? Sure. Do I have any faith that they would make money with him and actually have him succeed? No, because look at every single guy that has ever come from from New Japan in the past decade and how they fucked him up. All of them, every single one of them. So, I mean, that sounds shitty. That sounds so bad.
Yeah, and clearly they're only focused on pushing Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar. So,
right.
Yeah, there would be no hope for Jay White over there.
I mean, like, would it be cool at first when he first got there, kind of like how it was with Cody? Maybe. But long term, do I see them like, do I trust Triple H as a booker to, you know, do something compelling with Jay White? Do I think he gets Jay White? I don't think so.
Yeah, I think but
and then even like if he goes to AEW, I'll tell you this, like, are there some cool things he could do there? Sure. But they haven't even proven them. And we're not the anti-AEW podcast, but like they haven't proven that they've been able to handle most of the talent that they've gotten in the past year because they don't have enough TV time and opportunity to really showcase and utilize those guys in the right proper way. Anyways, think about how many guys are top stars that are just at home sidelined all the time in recent months. There's a lot of them.
Right.
There's a lot of people wondering, like, where are they? Why aren't they being used? What, you know, they have an embarrassment of riches of talent there to where they don't even know what to do with most of them.
Right. You got guys begging for TV time and they're continuing to sign more and more people. So it's getting harder and harder to get, you know, to share that 3 hours with that huge, super talented roster. So you add another guy like Jay White in there, it's going to be very hard to get him in the mix there and keep using him and everybody else. So yeah, I mean, I think New Japan is the place for Jay. I mean, there's still a lot he hasn't done. He hasn't won a G1. He hasn't won a New Japan Cup. You know, there's other stuff for him to do that he can still do in New Japan to cement his legacy there.
Yeah, and I mean, in a perfect world, would I love for guys to circulate amongst these various territories and companies? Yes. It's just not that realistic.
Yeah.
And also, I can guarantee you, if he goes to WWE, I'm not going to watch him. I don't watch that shit.
Same here. So that wraps up the 44th Street reviews. Real quick, we had the conclusion of the Autumn Action Tour for New Japan Strong on Saturday, October 29th. Show opened up. We had the Trust Buster, Arya Davari, defeating Kevin Knight, 8 minutes, 19 seconds. We had Alex Zane and Mystico defeating Blake Christian and Mascara Dorada, 10 minutes and 9 seconds. And then the big main event, Stone Pitbull, Tomohiro Ishii defeats Filthy Tom Lawler, 15 minutes and 31 seconds.
One of the better New Japan Strong shows in quite a while, especially the top two matches. That tag team match was awesome. Mystico, Zane, Christian, Mascara Dorada. I know that like the 4-way at the night before was really cool and flippy and fun, but seeing these guys do it versus those, you know, and I know there's some great talent in that first match, but like compared to that group of guys, including the guys from House of Glory, it's like a whole different class level of like talent and ability. Like, bro, Massacre Dorada and Mystico, I'm taking nothing away from Alexander and Blake Christian because they're both stellar as well. But like Mystico and Massacre Dorada, when they're on, and they were on here. This was so cool.
Yeah, dude. Mystico and Dorada had such great chemistry doing these super cool lucha spots and these big, like, high-flying moves. Like, it was super awesome. And, again, I really hope that we see potentially both of these teams in Super Junior Tag League.
And then the main event, Tom Lawler versus Tomohiro Ishii. Tom Lawler pinned Tomohiro Ishii 15 minutes and 31 seconds, and that was pretty crazy.
Ishii pinned Lawler.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm actually like literally looking at a results thing here, and I literally, as I was saying that, I was like, I thought Ishii hit him with a clothesline.
Yeah,
and pinned him.
Ishii hit him with this nasty lariat that had Tom do this crazy flip bump, land right on his head.
Yeah, Tom landed on his head, and I had to wonder, like, did he plan that? Like, was he like trying to put this guy over by like doing a really dangerous inside out bump like that?
Maybe to make the lariat look dangerous, because I can't remember the last time Ishii's pinned somebody just off a lariat.
Yeah, this match was awesome. Like, I really, really, really enjoyed it. And obviously, Tom Lawler is a big fan of Ishii, and he really respects him. And Ishii was super motivated here. And there's a reason why we named Ishii Wrestler of the Month this month, because he had some awesome matches, and this was one of them.
Yeah. We had a question from Oscar Rooney. Top 3 matches and top 3 moments from the shows you watched.
Oh, that's gonna be, well, I guess number 1 for me would be Narita Ishii. Number 2, man, we watched so many shows.
Yeah.
Number 2 would probably be, I don't know, Zack Sabre Jr. versus David Finlay, I'm guessing.
Probably, yeah.
And then number 3 would be like either Shingo and it'd probably be Shingo and ELP in the street fight, or it might be Ishii versus Filthy.
Yeah, honestly, I think I would take Ishii and Filthy over the Sabre match, and then throw in the KOPW match.
I could probably do that too, actually.
Top 3 moments. I mean, John Moxley showing up.
John Moxley showing up was really cool. Keiji Muto coming out, spraying the mist was really cool. Oh, and we didn't even mention, like, Great O'Khan came out the next night and had his face all bandaged and wrapped up with green on it, like selling the injury. Like,
yes, dude,
so
this
funny.
man's hilarious.
He ended up pulling it off, letting the people know like he's actually unaffected, but he was really selling the injury at first. It was so funny.
Yeah. Also, Ken Shamrock showing up.
Yeah, those probably been my 3 moments. I popped for all 3 of those.
So next week we have a new tour starting for New Japan Strong. The New Japan Showdown will start on Saturday, November 5th. Main event, Hiroshi Tanahashi will face off against Gabriel Kidd. Fallen Angel Christopher Daniels will take on our good friend Rocky Romero. And then we will have a number 1 contenders match for the Strong Openweight Tag Team titles. Stray Dog Army of Mysterioso and Barrett Brown, TMDK, Shane Hayes, and Bad Dude Tito. The LA Dojo's Kevin Knight and the DKC, and Team Filthy's West Coast Wrecking Crew. So winner will face the Motor City Machine Guns on a future date.
Nice. Well, let's kick it to the news here. First order of business. Yuya Uemura is potentially done with NJPW. We don't have that many details, but there are talks that, last week we had some people mentioning it, and we were just assuming it was some sort of weird mistranslation or misunderstanding. But there's reports out there that he may no longer be signed with or connected to New Japan Pro Wrestling. Which would be crazy. Like, he's a young lion on excursion and decided to stay in America. He liked it so much.
Yeah, I've heard recently, like in the last day or so, that it's a thing where the Daniels angle was a way to write him off of Strong, so he could just do other U.S. stuff. So do more Impact and do more indie bookings and kind of continue his excursion outside of New Japan.
That makes more sense to me, personally. Like, it would just seem so weird for somebody to have gone through the arduous and rigorous process of the Young Lion process, and then as soon as you get to America, just squander it, you know?
Right.
But
especially since it's not like a Fredericks thing where there was no write-off. Like, there was a angle that, an injury angle to take you more off TV.
Well, my concern was that it was a write-off because he was leaving, and they're like, we better get rid of this guy. We did have a question here. Rambo and Slam Pig said, to follow up on my question from last week about Yui Mora, more general question. Does NJPW take too long to put their young lions into meaningful places on the main roster? Do they lose out on talent who don't wait due to the number of options they have outside of the system?
Yeah, no, we've kind of talked about this, especially with Obari's comments about wanting to speed up the process. I do think there are some scenarios where some guys are gone longer and can be probably brought back sooner. I feel like a lot of the LA Dojo guys like Fredericks, Coughlin, Connors, Gabriel Kidd, like that group of guys, I feel like those guys probably were a little bit ready more than when they were using them. I feel like those guys could have been plugged in a little bit sooner.
Here's two things I'll say about it. Number one, in the past, they haven't really lost that many guys to outside opportunities that they actually wanted to keep or use. They don't really have a long history of that, to be honest. And, like there's just, that's just the way it is. Like, the way they slot them is based on what the company sees for those talents. So some guys like Hiromu get shot to the top. Some guys come in like Wato. It really just depends on what the company's preference is. Do I think that, like, for instance, with Sho and Yo, are they an example, or even Evil? Are those guys that they maybe could have done something quicker with and should have? Definitely. And that brings me to my second point. A lot of people are talking about, they need to expedite their process. And maybe there is something to that. But at no point in history have we had this many young lions in this many various different systems ready to go. And you kind of look at the Noge Dojo, the LA Dojo, and now potentially Fale's Dojo. This is a whole new problem. The problem isn't about speeding up the process. The problem is, how do we create enough opportunities to actually use these guys? And I think that's where we're starting to run into frustration and issues and the Carl Frederick stuff that happened. And it's uncharted territory. They've never had these systems. They've never had to deal with this. And what that means is, in order for them to create space for those guys, it means they're going to have to get rid of guys that are already on the roster. And then, if what you're lobbying for is for them to churn out stars quicker, that means you have to get rid of older stars as well to make space for them. And you're talking about more turnover in a large company that's not really known for having that much turnover. I don't think that the time is the issue. I think it's the roster spots that are the issue.
That's a great point. Because, you still have, your Makabes and your Hanmas, your Gotos, your Ishis that are, Suzuki's, those guys that are still there and going and taking roster spots.
Well, Jeremy, let's say you do that, right? Okay, you get rid of most of the dads, or you move them to part-time status or freelance status, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let's say you bring up all the lines they got right now. There's a lot of them. Okay, cool. But people are still, like Obari and then other people who are agreeing with him want them to still have the dojo system and make it quicker and get guys on the roster quicker. So now we just filled like 8 spots. Now we got a whole nother crop of guys that are coming up, and they're coming up quicker. the whole system is kind of broken at that point. And then it's like, even if you did do that, it's like, well, how are you going to make space for those guys and the guys after them, the guys after them? There was a reason why it was taking so long. And part of the reason why it took so long is because New Japan wasn't always readily able to bring in that the influx of lines that they were training all the time, that like, that's something I don't think a lot of people are taking into consideration. And the only way that they would be able to do that is either get rid of guys or create more opportunity, but like, they're not like AEW and WWE where it's a TV based model. So you can just create another show.
Right.
Like, what are you going to do? Add more dates, cut people's time, cut people off the tour. Like, what do you do?
Right. More multi-mans.
I don't know. And maybe the answer to it is, well, what does Stardom do? And to be honest, I don't know, because I don't watch Joshi. Yeah. And I'm not saying that negatively. Maybe that's a conversation that we should have with those fans, because I don't know what they do in their systems different than what New Japan does.
Right.
Next bit of news, NJPW Tamashi. It's not Tamahashi. It's Tamashi or Tamashai. I don't know the pronunciation. But the first inaugural show is November 11th, 2022 at Christchurch, New Zealand. And a couple of the announced matches, we have Kenta versus Andrew Villalobos, Aaron Solo and Tony Kozina versus the Bullet Club team of Bad Luck Fale and Taiji Ishimori, and Jeff Cobb taking on Michael Richards. The second night will be 11/13 in Sydney, Australia. We have Unsocial Jordan versus Jordan Allen, right? So Jordan versus Jordan.
Yeah.
That's weird. Matt Diamond and Robbie Eagles versus Jake Taylor and Richard Mulu. Jeff Cobb versus Carter Dreams. Matt Rogers and the Velocities taking on the Bullet Club team of Jack Bonza, Bad Luck Fale, and Kenta. If you guys don't know, Jack Bonza recently joined the Bullet Club over in Australia. Aaron Solo versus Liebert Lucci, Caveman Ugg, and Ricky South versus Andrew Villalobos and Michael Richards, and Taiji Ishimori versus Mick Moretti. In other news, PW Insider reports that Juice Robinson has signed a deal with AEW. So looks like we're going to have Bullet Club in every single major company.
Just
WWE,
like Jay wanted.
Yeah, WWE, Impact, AEW, New Japan, all of them. The signed or the special limited Wrestle Kingdom tour package is now available. This is a 4-day ultimate bundle. Tickets for Wrestle Kingdom 17 and New Year's Dash, as well as a special fan lunch and a talk event and much, much more. Spots are very limited. So if you're interested, book now. I actually looked at the dates on these, and I've always been told to like steer away from the package deals, but it didn't seem like the worst deal in the world. I was looking at, some stuff they had, and I was like, maybe I could swing this. I don't know. Especially since it's really hard. In the past, it's been really hard to get tickets for both New Year's Dash as well as Wrestle Kingdom, and they have a package where you can get into New Year's Dash. Might make it worth it. Plus, it takes care of your food and your lodging and all that. Just does. The only thing is your airfare is not taken care of.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's probably going to sell out. So definitely, if you're interested, take advantage. Fantastica Mania Tour has been announced to return from February 22nd to February 28th, a 1-week tour with CMLL talent for the first time since 2020. Due to the pandemic, the last 2 shows will be at Cork and Hall.
Yes.
Fantastica
Mania back, baby.
dun, 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 dun. Yeah. Shingo Takagi worked for Pro Wrestling Australia on 10/21 in Sydney, Australia, before a sellout crowd of 550 fans. He beat Jack Bonza via DQ due to interference from Bad Luck Fale. Fale then announced Bonza was part of the Bullet Club now. So there you go. Royce Isaacs noted that even though New Japan has taken care of him, he's part of Team Filthy on Strong, that he's not under contract and he is still a free agent. But he said New Japan was always his goal. So I'm guessing that was something that was noted recently in either interview or podcast some sort.
Yeah.
And then we have some Noah news. So Noah Ariake Triumph this past week, 10:30 the return, Pro Wrestling Love Forever 3 Triumph. We had the match between Muto and Naomichi Marufuji, as well as Yoshiki Inamura, as they defeated the team of Tanahashi, Togi Makabe, and Tomoaki Hanma, as well as Takashi Sugiura and Satoshi Kojima. They defended the Global Honor Championship Tag Team title crown as they defeated Kano and Yuto, or which Nakajima is it?
Yoshiko, or how you say
Yeah,
that?
I don't know. I was going to say Yuto Nakajima, but that's not right. And it was during that show that they announced that WWE Shinsuke Nakamura will face the Great Muta at Noah the New Year on January 1st, 2023. We did have a question here about this. Hawaiian Punch BV said, with Shinsuke Nakamura competing on Noah New Year's Eve show, is a Wrestle Kingdom appearance likely or not?
We were talking about that earlier. Like I was saying, I think it's unlikely just due to the political matters of New Japan being an AEW partner, and New Japan having an American presence, whereas Noah does not have either of those things really. So I think it's very unlikely, but like I said, never say never.
It's a one-off talent loan. I don't see it to be that unlikely, to be honest with you. I mean, if you think about it, WWE had Liger on the same night that New Japan was doing a co-branded show in New York several years back with Ring of Honor in the same city. And that seemed super unlikely. Now, this isn't a perfect one-for-one comparison, but is it possible that they could get a date on the guy for a talent loan? I don't see why not, especially since he's already working Noah, which also seems just in and of itself so super unlikely that it actually, to me, makes it more likely that he would work New Japan than if he wasn't working the Noah show at all. Again, do I think it's gonna happen? Probably not, but could it happen? I say sure. Why not?
Yeah.
Especially if WWE is trying to make good and play nice, quote unquote, they might just give him, for the night to New Japan, let him do the show. And then maybe that is their way to potentially weasel their way into, the negotiating table again.
Right. Get the NXT Japan project going.
Yeah. Jeremy, I would say we got a lot of questions here, but I don't know. How are we doing on time? Should we kick these next week?
Yeah, let's kick them the next week, especially because I feel like the next couple of weeks are going to be pretty light leading into historic crossover. Yeah, we're kind of over on time here. So let's jump to recommended match of the week and get out of here.
Nice. So my excursion match of the week this week was the Impact show where the Motor City Machine Guns defeated Aussie Open from September 22nd. Jeremy, I got to tell you, I don't know if you saw this. It was fine. It was nothing really special, though. And, it's kind of becoming a trend almost anytime we review one of these Impact television matches. They just don't seem to really stand out very much. They look good on paper. They're accessible on New Japan World, but they usually fall well underneath the expectations as opposed to if they'd happen on, say, Impact pay-per-view. The Impact pay-per-view excursion matches usually do deliver, but this one, probably 3.5, very fun. It was like 13 minutes. Motor City Machine Guns picked up a well-deserved win and went on to challenge for the titles, which I assume since they're not Impact champions, right?
No, not yet.
Oh, did they already challenge for the titles?
No, I think it's coming up. I think that the winner was going to go to Bound for Glory, I believe.
It is, but I thought Taven and it's Taven and what's his face, right?
Bennett. Taven and Bennett lost the titles to somebody. I don't think it was the Machine Guns.
Okay, because they were saying that's who they were gonna challenge for the titles at Bound for Glory, and I was like, aren't they signed to AEW? So I just assumed the shit already happened. But yeah, I mean, it is kind of interesting though that Aussie Open dropped the Never Openweight tag team titles the Strong Openweight tag team titles to Motor City Machine Guns and suffered a single, a straight up tag team loss to them on television over an Impact. So it kind of feels like right now the Machine Guns sort of have their number.
Yeah.
But I would say this was not a recommended match personally for our awards for the level that we kind of, hold that award level up to. Still an enjoyable 13-minute TV match.
Yeah. Then for the recommended match of the week, we had Fujinami Yamada Koshinaka Fujiwara and Kingo Kimura versus Hiro Saito, Kobayashi, Super Strong Machine, Masa Saito, and Riki Choshu from September 12th, 88. This was a big, the true Josh Smith special elimination matchup here. And, you watch this match and you see the complete difference compared to like the match that happened on the night before. You had a match full of all big stars. There's no guys that were really like on that yo level. I feel like all the guys were super over. And I just felt like the match was constructed a lot differently. I feel like nowadays the elimination match is just about the eliminations, really. Like, let's get these quick eliminations. Whereas here, they were actually wrestling. They were telling stories. And I felt like they built better to the eliminations here and made every elimination matter. When you compare it to like the Halloween match, like there are all these quick eliminations, like boom, 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 like Yo's gone, Red's gone, Team Filthy's like West Coast Wrecking Crew's gone. Like you had all these quick eliminations, they didn't really sink in, they really didn't mean much, and I felt like here all the eliminations were timed out well, where like they mattered, they meant something, they changed the flow of the match. I felt like the crowd popped big for eliminations. Like it just felt like a completely bigger deal. Even got some color towards the end of the match here. But yeah, overall a really fun matchup. And if you want to see kind of what the elimination matchup, what it meant back in the day and why it's quite not the same nowadays, I would definitely recommend checking this out.
Couple things. They did the eliminations back then to where you didn't have to go over the top rope. You literally just, if you ended up outside of the ring, whether it was under the ropes or through the middle rope, that was an elimination, which sounds in theory kind of lame. It's like, oh, it's not over the top rope, it's not as dangerous. But it actually eliminated the ability for guys to go outside and brawl or do anything. It was like, and it actually added to a sense of danger, because it's like, oh shit, if I go outside of the ring, I lose. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I felt like in this match, they did a good job of utilizing that while also not making it feel cheap. Like there's times in the New Japan elimination matches now where someone gets thrown over the top rope. I was like, oh, damn it. But in this one, it was like people were getting like thrown out, and it was like it felt impactful. And also the work rate, like the speed of the tags and the work that they were doing. Like, I know this is from 88, so it's like over 30 years, but it was like a lot faster and more high action.
Yeah, there was a lot of great moves like in this match.
Well, I mean, you look at the list of talent, you got Liger in there, you got Kuniaki Kobayashi, is like one of the greatest like juniors of New Japan history. Obviously, Fujinami is just one of the best. Riki Choshu. I mean, Fujiwara, like this was a who's who. It was a really, really great list of guys that were in there. And you went in there blind without the backstory, and I won't elaborate, but this was something that I've been building for years and years and years. And there's just a lot of heat between these two camps going back to like 83, essentially. And the thing I love at the end is you have the IWGP champion in Fujinami, and he's looking to get all this revenge. And it comes down to him and Choshu, and he gets Choshu out of there, and that's just him and Saito, and he's bloodied Saito, and he's just, but like, and that's the thing too, is like there's a lot of good technical wrestling, a lot of good high flying wrestling, a lot of good cheating. There's all sorts of stuff, but at the end it becomes a bloodbath, and he's just battering Saito, and Saito's just getting mauled and destroyed by this enraged world champion in his prime. And then at the last second, out of nowhere, it's just a fucking shocker. Saito moves out of the way. Fujinami gets eliminated.
Dude, Fujinami was pissed. He couldn't believe it.
Fujinami's so pissed. And Saito's just covered in blood, and he's just slumped in the corner, and he's got his one hand up.
Yeah, dude. Fujinami was shook.
It's so good. It's so good. Yeah, if you guys haven't seen this, I think that this holds up with pretty much any of the best Survivor Series matches that are out there.
Yeah. All right, what you got for our excursion match of the week?
For excursion match of the week, well, I don't know, Jeremy, because I was gonna say Shingo and Jack Bonza, but I didn't know it ended on a DQ. Actually, to be honest with you, I couldn't find anything about this online, and I thought, well, it's from Down Under. It's a big show. I heard the PWA Black Label show was like, pretty good. Maybe we should check that out. So I'll leave it up to you because we have access to that show. Maybe we check out Jack Bonza and Shingo, especially considering how important that might potentially be with Jack Bonza joining Bullet Club. Or I was also kind of torn, thinking maybe the Tanahashi Muto 6-man tag from Noah might be worth checking out. That one has a lot of good reviews, and maybe it's getting overblown, but it's looking like in that 4-ish range. So I'll leave it up to you.
You know what? Let's do the Jack Bonza just because, we do have access to the match, and I do want to check that show out. So let's go ahead and just check out the Jack Bonza match, and then we can do the Suzuki or the Muto match in the next week.
All right. And Jeremy, what do you got for me for recommended match of the week?
Recommended match of the week. We're going back to Power Struggle 2012 for the IWGP Intercontinental title. Shinsuke Nakamura versus Carl Anderson. So two guys that are...
Why are you making me watch a Carl Anderson match as the recommended match of the week?
Because this one was actually good.
Bro, I don't... all right, I'll watch it, but it seems kind of fucked up right now.
It's 2012 Carl Anderson, and it's 2012 Nakamura.
Okay, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt.
And it's two guys in the news right now. It's traditionally the Power Struggle season, so let's go with it. Well, that's going to wrap things up. Next we'll be back to review the 2 Osaka shows, and we'll review those next week. If you enjoyed today's show, please consider making a donation. Visit socialsuplex.com/donate. Click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure you're connect with us on social media. On Twitter, the show is at KI Strong Style. Follow the network at Social Suplex. You can follow me at Jeremy L. Donovan. On Facebook, we're facebook.com/Social Suplex. Also find us in the Wrestling Squared Circle Facebook group. On Instagram at Social Suplex. On Reddit and the Pro Black Guy, Josh is Keeping It Strong Style. You can email me, Jeremy at socialsuplex.com. Check out all the other shows here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. One Nation Radio, hosted by Rich Latta and James Boyd. The Grave Consequences, hosted by Caleb and Maserati. All Things Elite, hosted by Floyd and Austin. AEW Match Guide Podcast, hosted by Sir Sam. The Great Match Generator, hosted by Danny Kukler. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review, and we will catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Ichiban.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.
Tired of long waits and rushed care at the ER and urgent care clinic? Next time, stay home and let Dispatch Health bring the power of the hospital to you.
I call Dispatch Health. A care team of medical professionals actually come to your house.
They're the same caliber of people that you would see if you were at a hospital or an urgent care.
Dispatch Health can treat most non-life-threatening emergencies.
They can do the x-rays, they can do stitches.
Urinary tract infections, blood test, urinalysis, ultrasound.
It's almost everything that they can do at the ER.
You never feel rushed. They're there for you and only you.
I felt like their only patient.
And it costs no more than a trip to urgent care because Dispatch Health is covered by most insurance, including Medicare. See if we serve your home at dispatchhealth.com.
Dispatch Health really went above and beyond.
It's wonderful to have care come to your home.
House calls are back, and they're better than ever. Learn more at dispatchhealth.com.